Hello, it's great to have you with us. My name is Marvin Music, and on behalf of the team of EnlightnU, we want to welcome you to the Mastering Medicare Workshop. We're here today because of laws and legislation that were originally passed back in 1965. Now, in 1965, I was 4 years old. Most of you that are viewing this today, probably 10 or so. And what President Lyndon Johnson and the U.S. Congress was doing with health care benefits for the retired was the least of your concerns. Now, your grandparents were certainly paying attention, but you could not have cared less. But time flies, as a nod, and things change. And we fast forward the clock from 1965 to today, 54 years ago, and that which was the least of your concerns then has now become a large concern, especially as your 65th birthday is approaching, and you're going to have to make some kind of decision about your Medicare. Now, in the last 54 years, Medicare has evolved into the largest health insurance plan in America. There are now well over 60 million people that are eligible for Medicare benefits, and as you probably know, that list grows rapidly every day. They tell us now that on the average there are 11,000 people turning 65 every day in America. And so not only has Medicare become the largest health insurance plan, it's also become the most complicated one as well. And so if you've been reading and studying and asking questions and try to figure this system out, you probably would agree with that statement. And that's exactly why our company holds these workshops. We specialize in retirement planning, and we understand the confusion surrounding Medicare. We know the frustration that some people will experience as they try to figure this Medicare system out all alone. And we also know that most people have questions about their specific situation, and sometimes it can be very difficult to get a straight and accurate answer. And we also are aware of the fact that your mailbox is getting a lot of attention right now. Companies that are sending you a lot of literature, and they're trying to convince you that they have this perfect Medicare plan for you. And according to their literature, all you need to do is pick up the phone and call 1-800-DIAL-AN-AGENT, and all your Medicare worries will go away. Well, I'm here to tell you that's not exactly true. You see, there's not one company that has one plan that's going to be a perfect fit for everyone. Such a company or plan does not exist. That's not reality. One size does not fit all in the Medicare business. But there is something that is true, and that's this. You are going to have to make a decision about your Medicare coverage, and I think you understand that's an important decision. I would tell you it's a critical decision because the choice that you make about your Medicare coverage will have consequences for you both physically as well as financially. Now, I have had the opportunity to educate tens of thousands of people through workshops just like this all over the country. And every time I do one, my objective is the same, and that is to help you, to educate you, to equip you so that after today, you will have a better understanding of how Medicare works, what it costs, what it covers, what it doesn't cover. You're going to see today that Medicare is very good insurance, but it does not cover everything. Today, I'm going to show you how to enroll into Medicare, when to enroll into Medicare, when not to enroll into Medicare. Some of you at the conclusion of our workshop will have the confidence knowing that you do not have to do anything with Medicare, at least not yet. So really, I have two very simple goals. Number one, when we're done today at the conclusion of the workshop, I hope that you'll feel within your heart that this is time well spent. I do not think for a second that this will be a waste of your time. Secondly, what we want to do today is we want to help you to navigate through what is often called, and really I think accurately called, the Medicare maze. And Medicare does seem like a maze a few places because you come to some decisions and you want to make the right decision, you want to make the right turn, the right move. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to show you how to navigate through that maze every step of the way so that when you go on Medicare, whenever that is, you'll know that you have made the right decision for your specific situation. All right, so let me show you how we're going to accomplish these goals. You had the opportunity when we emailed you, we sent you a link. You could download some documents. These are worksheets. They are very important. Hopefully you have those before you. If you don't, I have a few more introductory comments, and you can see there on the screen how you can download those. So I would encourage you, download those real quickly, and I want to go through those with you, those of you that have already downloaded them. First off, there's one that says the notes page. As we go through the material, I know you're going to have questions. So what I'm going to encourage you to do is jot some of your questions down. Probably during the presentation I'll answer those, but if I do not, at the very end we'll give you an opportunity to be able to address those questions to us personally. Okay, so that's the notes page. And then the other document next I want to draw your attention to, it says blue sheet, green sheet, and pink sheet. Now you can see on my screen here live that ours is blue, and ours is green, and ours is pink. But we just labeled those so you would know when I say go to the blue, green, or pink sheet, you know what I'm talking about. These are all very important, great information in here. And so as I go through the presentation, when I tell you to go to these particular sheets, this is what I'm referencing. And then lastly, I do want you to then pick up this document that has all kinds of information on it. And you're going to notice on the bottom right-hand corner, this one says Medicare Grid. Most of you know that Medicare has 4 moving parts, A, B, C, and D. And we're going to spend a lot of time teaching you about Medicare A, B, C, and D because you're going to have to understand these parts to really understand how Medicare works. Okay, so we'll spend a lot of time on this grid today. Now, I'm not going to start on the grid. You'll also notice that we have some notes page. There is one that is notes page 1, notes page 2, and then notes page 3. So 3 pages of notes. But today I'm not going to start on the grid. I'm going to start here on notes page 1, and I'm going to address the whole issue of Medicare enrollment. We have to settle that first. When are you going to get on Medicare and how are you going to do that? That's all notes page 1. When I'm done with notes page 1, then I'm going to have you go to your grid. This document here, Medicare grid, and you're going to note there's 4 columns. And I'm going to first address Medicare A and B, which is original Medicare. And when we're done with the grid portion, then I'm going to have you go to notes page 2. And I have just a couple of statements I want to give you. They're critical to know, things I couldn't put on the grid, but are statements that you need to know. And those are 2 statements about Medicare A and 2 about Medicare B. And then after that, we're going to go back to the grid. I'm going to teach you the 3rd column. These are Advantage plans. Statistically, half of all people today that are on Medicare have an Advantage plan. So many of you are going to choose Advantage plans for your coverage. And then after that, we'll go to notes page 2, give you a couple of statements about Advantage plans, and I'll conclude then the 4th column, which are drug plans. Everyone has to have some type of a drug component as part of their Medicare plan. And so again, we have grid for that, and then a couple statements on notes page 2. And then I'll conclude at the very end on notes page 3, really just a summary, a few little items that I think are noteworthy, and then we'll be done. And so that's the method that I'm going to be following today. And then just before we get started here, I do want you to know a little bit about me. Number one, I am an independent insurance broker. I'm also a fiduciary investment advisor. And really all the products and all the services that individuals and couples need as they are preparing for retirement or in retirement, that's what our firm does. We specialize in retirement planning. We do not have any clients below the age of 60 on purpose. Okay, we are retirement planners. And so today, though, what I want you to do is I want you to totally relax because we're not here to sell you anything whatsoever. Today's event is officially called a Medicare educational event. And what that means is that Medicare has some rules attached to these kind of events. I'm aware of the rules. I'm going to keep all of them. And what it means to me as a presenter is I cannot and will not today be company specific, product specific, or price specific. Those things are off limits at an educational event because if I share product price specifics, then it looks like I'm trying to push a product or a certain company or try to sell you something. We're not here to do that whatsoever. Now, for you who are attending an educational event, it means there's certainly no pressure. There's nothing to buy today. We're not going to ask you for an appointment. There's nothing you have to do. These are designed to be truly and purely informational. Now, through the years as I've done these, people ask me, well, Marvin, what's in it for you? Surely you don't do this for your health. Well, here's what's in it for us. Number one, we've been at this a long while. And we know that most people are going to want to need some additional assistance with their Medicare planning sometime. We know that's going to happen. And so what we hope we can do is we can gain your trust and your confidence so that you will understand the importance of having someone help you with your Medicare planning that knows what they're doing. And so we hope we can gain that trust and confidence through our workshop so that whenever you're ready to go on Medicare, whenever that is, and again, some of you, you'll call our office on Monday. Others of you, it may be a month or 2 or a week or 2 or 3 or 4 years out. But sometime when you go on Medicare, we hope that you'll reach out and give us the privilege to help you with your Medicare planning. All right, that's what's in it for us. Let's get started. Medicare, oh, I forgot to mention this. Most everything I'm going to teach today is in your notes. But every now and then you're going to see this arrow come up, this obnoxious arrow, and it's a reminder to all of us that what I'm getting ready to show you is not in your notes, so don't dig around for it. It's simply on the screen only. These are some visuals that we added in here to help emphasize certain things that I'm trying to teach you today. So again, you'll see the arrow. All right, let's get started. Medicare begins here with a Medicare card. Now, I know that many of you helped your parents with their Medicare claims and benefits and all those kinds of things. Most of you did. And your parents' Medicare card does not look like this. Your parents' Medicare cards were different. For years, from 1965 actually until 2018, Medicare cards always had a Social Security number on them. And so if a person was drawing benefits off of their work record, it was their Social Security number that was their Medicare claim number with a letter after it that meant something. If a person was drawing their Medicare benefits off of someone else's work record, it would have been that person's Social Security number with a letter after it that meant something. And so that was the numbering system used for years. But because of all the identity theft problems and things that surfaced because of that, Medicare made the decision, very wise decision, to get away from using Social Security numbers as Medicare claim numbers. So today, we don't have Social Security numbers on our cards. We have 11 digits that are totally random. These are some letters and some numbers. And this is just simply your individual identification number for your Medicare claims. And so, of course, your name and effective date just simply means that's when your Medicare coverage begins. It's always on the first of the month that you start your coverage. And then this represents original Medicare. Hospital is called Part A. Medical is called Part B. The way to distinguish the two is hospital Part A is pretty much everything that will be related to inpatient services. B, pretty much everything related to outpatient services. So we have to have a Medicare card to use our benefits. So the first question is, who is eligible for Medicare? In other words, who can draw Medicare benefits? Well, the answer is anyone who is 65, approaching 65, or 65, who has paid Medicare taxes for at least 40 quarters, or whose spouse has done so. All right, so right now, if you're still working for someone, 1.45% of every dollar that you're making is going to fund Medicare. 6.20% is going into the Social Security system. And so we call those FICA taxes. These are payroll deductions. And so you put in this much and your employer matches that. If you're self-employed, you put those full amounts in. But we're funding Medicare and we're funding Social Security. And in order to be able to draw benefits from either one of those systems, we have to have at least 40 quarters in. Now, most of you have much more than 40 quarters, but we have to have at least 40. Now, there are some people that don't have 40 quarters. My wife would be a perfect example of this. She actually has 4 quarters. We have been married 31 years. We have 7 children. 5 of those are biological, 2 we adopted from the country of Uganda. My children range from age 6 up to 29. My oldest is a girl, 29, when she was 5 years old. My wife came to me and she said, I would like to home educate our children. She wasn't homeschooled, I wasn't homeschooled, didn't know a lot about that, but I did know some things about my wife. Number one, she was a degreed elementary education teacher. She is smart as a whip, she is very disciplined, and so I knew she could do a good job if she wanted to, and so we embarked in that, and she's done a very, very good job with our children, teaching them at home. But there's one problem with homeschooling mom, that they don't make any money. I've always been the source of income in our family, and so she does not have 40 quarters, but she has nothing to worry about because she can draw off of my work record for Medicare benefits as well as Social Security. We call that a qualifying spouse. Now, there's certain rules about that. I just want to highlight a couple. Number one, if you're married to someone, well, what I'm saying is if you don't have your 40 quarters and you're married to someone right now, as long as that marriage has been at least 1 year, you can draw off of that spouse's work record. If you were married to someone and they died while you were married to them, as long as you're married to them at least 9 months, you can draw off their work record. Now, there's some that were married and they were married for a lengthy period of time. You have to be married for at least 10 years, and if that marriage ended in divorce, as long as it lasted 10 years, you can go back to that previous spouse as long as you did not remarry prior to the age of 60. If you did remarry prior to the age of 60, you can't go back to that first spouse. Now, if that second marriage ends because of death or divorce, you can always go back to the previous one, all right? So those are the rules surrounding qualifying spouses, and you can address those to me individually if you need to. But the point is, someone has to pay into the system for 40 quarters, either you or a qualifying spouse. All right, so that's where we get benefits. Now, secondly, there's people who are under the age of 65 who qualify for Medicare, and that's those who have been diagnosed with either an emotional or a physical disability, and now they're drawing those disability benefits from the Social Security system or from the Railroad Retirement Board. And if they have those benefits going on for 24 months, on the 25th month, regardless of age, they're automatically enrolled into Medicare. And this is why you'll meet people that are 47 or maybe 61 or 39 that are drawing Medicare benefits because they've been on Social Security, disability, or Railroad Retirement Board for at least 24 months, and then they automatically qualify for Medicare. And then lastly, you do have to be a U.S. citizen or a permanent legal resident for at least 5 consecutive years. So that's how we're able to draw benefits from Medicare as well as Social Security. All right, next question is, who needs to enroll in a Medicare? Who needs to initiate the enrollment? Well, for some of you, you're going to be automatically enrolled into Medicare. As a matter of fact, if you are on Social Security right now and your birthday is coming up in January, you got your Medicare card in the mail at the very end of September. It just showed up. If you're turning 65 and your birthday's in February and you're on Social Security, you're going to get your Medicare card really any day now. It's going to show up in the mail. All right, that's the system. You're assumed by Social Security Medicare that you want to start your Medicare benefits because you're receiving retirement benefits. So they automatically enroll you into Medicare. They're not aware if you have a group plan or not available, so they put you into the Medicare system and send you the card. So those that are automatically enrolled is this group here. Those turning 65, already receiving a check, Social Security or wherever retirement board. And in this scenario, your coverage, Medicare, begins the first day of the month that you turn 65. That's when you're first eligible. Now, there is one exception to this. If your birthday is on the first day of the month, let's say you're born January 1, they will actually move your coverage to December 1. They move you to the previous month. If my birthday is February 1, they're going to move me to January. But if my birthday is on the second of the month thereafter, it's always your birth month when you turn 65 that you're eligible for Medicare. All right? And the Medicare card shows up about 100 days prior to your birth month. So those of you turning 65 in February, this card is going to show up really any day now. All right, so that's the system that is used when you're automatically enrolled in Medicare. Now, there are times when people are on Social Security, Medicare card shows up in the mail, but they really don't want to start Medicare, at least not yet. Why would that be the case? Well, the reason is because they or their spouse are working and they have a group employer-provided health insurance plan that they like. They like the cost of the plan, they like the coverage of the plan, and they're really not interested in Medicare, at least not yet. And so Medicare knows this is going to happen, so they make provision for this. If you have a group plan of yours or a group plan of your spouse's and the Medicare card shows up and you don't want to start Medicare, you can amend your benefits. You can actually delay some of them. Now, listen, if you're receiving Social Security benefits, you have to stay enrolled in Medicare A. The only way to undo A is for 1 year, they allow you to return all your money you receive from Social Security, and you can undo Social Security and therefore undo A. But if you're on Social Security for more than a year and you don't want to return the money, then you are going to have to stay enrolled in A as long as you're receiving those Social Security benefits. But you don't have to take B if we have a group plan of ours or our spouses that's available to us. We can amend the benefits. We do that right here. You turn the card over. You all saw the front side, that red, white, and blue card. We're going to turn it over. On the back side, it looks just like this. And you would check in this scenario that you do not want medical insurance. Remember, Part A is hospital, Part B is medical. And so this is the medical portion, the Part B of Medicare. You check here, you sign it, and you're going to mail it back into Medicare. And when they get this card from you, they're going to amend your benefits. They'll drop off the B, allow you to pick that up at a later date, and I'll show you how you do that. And they'll send you a new card, and that card's going to say Part A, hospital only. Now remember, if you or your spouse are not working, you don't have a group plan available, you're not sending the card back in, you're keeping the card. And if you keep the card, what's going to happen? Part B, medical, has a premium. Right now, most people are paying $135.50 a month. They're going to start taking that right out of your check when your Medicare benefits begin. That $135.50 comes out automatically. Send the card back in, they'll drop off the B, and you get it later. All right, so that's the way you can amend your benefits for a time. Now, there are many of you here that are turning 65, and though you're not on Social Security yet. And so you are going to have to initiate that enrollment. So this would be for those people, self-enrollers, turning 65 who are not receiving a Social Security or Railroad Retirement Board check yet. Now, I want to clarify some things about Social Security because I know there's many of you that are going to start Medicare at 65, but you're not yet taking Social Security. So let's clear up some of the items. We're retirement planners and we deal with Social Security all the time. Happy to help with that as well. But here's what I want you to know. Number one, if we're born between 1943 and 1954, we have a full retirement age of 66. Now, we can certainly take Social Security benefits prior to 66, but we take a reduction in benefit, basically about 6% a year. We can take all the way down to 62, which means a 25% reduction, but it's permanent. And so many of you don't want to do that because you don't want to take less Social Security. And so if you're born in 1955, which some of you are, I know, your full retirement age is going to be 66 and 2 months. Born in 56, it's going to be 66 and 4 months, and they keep going all the way down here to 1960, and then we have a full retirement age of 67. So they just start out in 2 months. So if you're born in 1957, it's 66 and 6 months, and you can see the chart here. And so from here on, anyone born in 1960 on has a full retirement age of 67. Now, I would suspect they're probably going to change that down the road, but for now, that's the way it is set up. And so many of you are waiting to full retirement age to start your Social Security, but you're going to have to start Medicare at 65 because you or your spouse are not working. You need to do that. So you have to initiate the enrollment. Now, one other thing I want to clarify about Social Security, if a person does take early, there are some restrictions that we call an earnings test. So if you take Social Security prior to your full retirement age, whatever that would be, you can only make so much money. This is called the earnings test. And from 62 to 65, and by the way, this is 2019, so this is present numbers, the most you can make is $1,470 a month. All right? Now, that $1,470 is wages. It is not investment income, distributions from IRAs, 401ks. It's not rental income. It's totally wages, something you're working for. So this would be self-employment or W-2 wages. The most we can make is here. If we make above that, for every $2 we go above that number, they take $1 out of our Social Security benefit. All right, so that's the earnings test up to 65. Now, they changed that the year we turn 66. So let's say my birthday's in October. In other words, I'm going to turn 66 in October of 2020. And if that's the case, here's what happens. From January all the way to September, the earnings test goes up. So the year I turn 66, I'm not there yet, but I'm close. Now the earnings test goes to $3,910 a month. Now I can make more money the year I turn 66. And if I go above that, for every $3 above, they take $1 out of my check. All right? But what happens? Once I hit my full retirement age, the earnings test goes away. And you can make as much wages, as much income as you want to, and there's no consequence to your Social Security check. All right, so I want to clarify that because many of you are not taking Social Security. Some of you actually, you're going to go beyond 66, and you're going to get what's called delayed retirement credits. And that means your account's going to grow at 8% a year up until age 70. You're doing that probably because you either don't need the money, you're trying to grow it, and that's a good plan. As long as you live long enough, you'll know that that was a good decision, right? And so there's always a break-even point in that regard. But again, we're happy to discuss that privately with you if you ever need some more help with the Social Security decisions. All right, so back to this. So those of you starting Medicare at 65, not receiving a check, you're going to self-enroll. Here's how you do it. You can go online. This is ssa.gov. This exact website is the very best place to go. You will not go to a place where they're going to even ask you about Social Security. This is totally a Medicare-only site. And so when you go to this site, it's going to take you maybe 5 to 7 minutes to enroll into Medicare. Very, very user-friendly. If you don't want to do that or for some reason you have some kind of issues with that, you can make an appointment with the local Social Security office, or you can call the 800 number that goes into the main office in Social Security in D.C. And so the point is, these will do the job. They will allow us to get enrolled into Medicare. So that you can start at 65. Now, there is a new step that started last year, and that is this. You must create what is called a myssa.gov account. You have to have one of these now, at least attempt to have one. Sometimes it's difficult to set these up because of credit issues, but you must have one eventually to be able to access Social Security enrollment, Medicare enrollment. So we'd encourage you to go on there. And again, it's a pretty user-friendly system, but occasionally there's some glitches in that system. You may have to call the local office and have them help you through them. But you have to have an ssa.gov account. So this is the process. And then what's going to happen within about 4 weeks now, those of us who are self-enrolling will have our Medicare card. All right, so start to finish about 4 weeks. Now, I'm going to explain something that can be a little confusing. There's several parts of Medicare that are confusing, and this is one of them. And I'm going to make some sense of what is called enrollment periods. So when Medicare gives you an enrollment period, clearly you're going to have to enroll into something, and the period means they're going to give you a certain time to do that. And so the enrollment period that I'm going to address here has to do with getting into Medicare and getting the Medicare card. And so what happens is they give us different opportunities. Now again, this is screen only, not in your notes. And they're going to give us 3 different opportunities to be able to get the Medicare card. So when you have an enrollment period, you have to ask yourself, what am I doing? So this instant I'm teaching is getting the Medicare card, getting the red, white, and blue card. Later, I'll teach you about enrollment periods to get other insurance to go along with Medicare. I hold the opinion that it is unwise for most people to have Medicare A and B only. Probably going to want a supplemental plan, a drug plan, maybe an Advantage plan. And so you have enrollment periods to get those other insurances. So we're either getting a card and enrollment periods to do that, or we're getting other insurance and we have enrollment periods to do that. Okay? And so now we're talking about getting that Medicare card. So we have 3 different opportunities, and I want you to see everyone here, this is the one of the 2 we're going to use. We're not going to use this one. If you use this one, you made a mistake, and there's penalties with that. So we're going to focus on these 2 right here. So these 2 are good, and that one right there stinks. I don't want you to use the general enrollment period. We'll talk briefly about it, though. So we're going to focus on these. The first one is called the initial enrollment period. So when to enroll into Medicare. And so the first opportunity, this initial enrollment period, lasts for 7 months. 7 months to sign up, and anyone starting 65, this is when they're going to do it. Now, if you're on Social Security, and the Medicare card showed up in the mail, this is the enrollment period that they used on your behalf. And if you're going to keep the card, then you really have nothing else to do. You're enrolled into Medicare. So you can kind of check out of this for just a second because you're already enrolled. So this really pertains to those of you that are turning 65, not on Social Security, and you're going to initiate that enrollment. Okay, now let me tell you who you are. You're turning 65 and you're covered by a retiree plan. You may be covered by a COBRA insurance plan, or you may be covered by an ACA plan. And if you're covered right now, meaning no group plan available to you, no one's working, you or your spouse, so we have retiree plan, COBRA plan, ACA plan, you're going to start Medicare at 65. Now listen, you can keep the retiree plan if it's in your best interest, but you got enrolled to put Medicare in the first payer position. Your retiree plan wants to pay second. Same thing with COBRA. If COBRA makes sense for you for whatever reason, usually it doesn't, but if it does, you can keep COBRA, but you got to put Medicare in the first payer position, and you do that by enrolling. Those of you that are on ACA plans, the Affordable Care Act, you went through the healthcare.gov exchange to be able to get that policy. You actually can keep the plan. The problem is the subsidies and the cost sharing that make that plan work go away. They're gone at 65. And so you will not want to keep the plan. The deductibles are high, the premiums are typically high, the networks are limited, and so you're going to come off of those ACA plans and go on Medicare. And if we're not on Social Security, we must initiate that enrollment. So we're going to do that during the 7 months. That 7 months is 3 months before our 65th birth month we turn 65, and 3 months after. And folks, once these 7 months are gone, they're gone forever. So we have to start Medicare at 65. This is when we're going to do it. Now we highly encourage you to do this enrollment in advance. What I mean by that is those first 3 months before you turn 65. So your coverage begins the first day of the month you want it to, right when you turn 65. So we have no gaps in our coverage. We don't want you to go without insurance at this age, all right? Now, we're going to give you an example of someone's initial enrollment period, 7 months, and this person's birthday is in December, 3 months before, month of, 3 months after. Again, this is only on the screen, not in your notes. And so we have the 7 month period. So watch what happens. If I enroll 3 months in advance, like we are suggesting, then my coverage begins right when I want it to when I'm first eligible in December. But if I wait for whatever reason, and we have people that'll wait because of procrastination, maybe misinformation, confusion, not sure what to do. But if your birthday's in December and we enroll in December, now they don't start a coverage till January. But if my birthday's in December, I enroll in January, they skip February, now I don't have coverage till March. Watch this. If my birthday's in December and I happen to enroll in February, they skip March, April, May. If it's in December and I enroll in March, they skip April, May, and I don't have coverage till June. So you've delayed the coverage, and at our age, it's just not real wise to go without health insurance. Something goes wrong, probably very expensive. So we want to be sure you enroll at the proper time. So that's the timeline. Now, I want you to go to that blue sheet. The blue sheet, we label it, and these are part of your downloads. And we're going to spend some time talking about this timeline. Now, the reason we put this document together is because we know that you need to know what to do and when to do it. We find that sometimes people figure out what to do, but they don't do it when they're supposed to, and they're penalized for that. There's 2 Medicare penalties that are lifetime, and we don't want you to have penalties. So you can follow this timeline along. All you have to do in the first column is find your birth month. Your birth month. Now, may I remind you, if I'm born January 1, this is not my column. I must move up a month. If I'm born February 1, this is not my column. I must move up a month, right? And so if you're born the second thereafter, then you can find the line. So we know that's very self-explanatory. When are you born? Next column, if enrollment into Medicare is automatic. Well, who's automatically enrolled in Medicare? Didn't have to do a thing. Well, anyone receiving Social Security or Railroad Retirement Board benefits. They did the enrollment for you. That's why you got the card in the mail. When's the card show up? Well, you're going to notice. If my birthday's in January, the card showed up at the end of last month. In February, it's going to show up any day now. They typically start arriving sometime around the 20th of the month. So that can happen today or Monday, but it's going to happen real soon. You should have the card. Now, it is not uncommon for people to look at our chart and say, wow, I should already have my card. I'm on Social Security, but I don't have my Medicare card. This happens all the time. So if you should have the card and you don't, one of 3 things has occurred. Number 1, they could have mailed it to the wrong address. Maybe you've moved recently, didn't update, they don't know for sure where you are, probably mailed it to the old address and was returned to sender. Number 2, you could have actually thrown it away. This happens a lot. I know most of you are getting a lot of junk mail. You kind of get tired of the junk mail. You didn't know the Medicare card was going to show up in the mail, and you possibly threw it away. Or it could be that maybe you haven't gone through all the junk mail at this time. It's still in your house somewhere, and you may going to go through that mail and open it up. You may find your Medicare card in there. But if you should have the card and you don't have the card, all you have to do is call up Social Security, that 800 number that we gave to you, and tell them you need a replacement card. They will gladly send you a new card if you should have your card and you don't. All right? So that's the way that works. Next column, if self-enrolling into Medicare. Well, who has to initiate the enrollment? Anyone that's not on Social Security, not receiving real retirement board benefits. You have to raise your hand and say, hey, I'm ready to start Medicare. Right? They don't assume a thing about it. You have to do it. When are you going to do that? Well, notice, if my birthday month is January, you could begin enrolling this month, anytime after October 1. Birthday's in February, November 1 on, you'll be able to enroll. And the reason they do this is because they tell us that 11,000 people turning 65 every day, on average in America. 45% of those people are going to start Medicare at first eligibility. And so that's a lot of folks coming in every week. That's 5,000 people a week. 1.5 million people a year, lots of enrollment. So they allow you to come into the system 90 days prior to when your coverage begins. That's how they can kind of manage the traffic of enrollment. And just so you know, Social Security uses the very same timeline. 90 days prior, you can begin to apply for Social Security benefits before your effective date. All right, so that's the way that works. So that's that column. Then the last column, and I want you to know that I do strongly hold the opinion that it is pretty unwise for people to have Medicare A and B only. Okay? Most people are going to need a drug plan, a supplemental plan, or an Advantage plan, other insurance. All right, now there is one exception to this that you need something beyond A and B, and that would be if you're retired military. Now, I didn't say you have VA benefits. That's a whole different program. Okay, I was in the military. I'm qualified for VA benefits also, but I'm talking about retired military. In other words, you served our country 20, 25, 30 years, good long period of time, and you made it to full retirement with the military, and now you qualify for insurance that's called TRICARE for life, your spouse as well. And that's a wonderful, wonderful insurance. And you don't have to have any of the things in this column. And if someone tells you that you do, they don't know what they're talking about. Okay, you can have A and B. You need to send that A and B card, a copy of it, or fax and email it to TRICARE for Life, letting them know you're now on Medicare. And TRICARE for Life will pay secondary to Medicare. As long as Medicare pays first, TRICARE for Life will pick up all the bills and will also include a prescription drug plan within that coverage. So you have wonderful insurance. I'm glad you have that. I'm glad you served our country. We're grateful you did, and you have great insurance because of that. All right? But if you're not retired military, you are going to need something in that particular column. When are you going to buy those things? Again, 90 days prior to when your effective month on Medicare begins, you can begin to shop and compare. Almost everyone we're working with right now, December, January birthdays, okay? Most all Novembers have made their decisions, but right here, soon to be February after November 1. But 60 to 90 days prior to when your Medicare begins, you need to start looking at all these other options. All right, so that's the timeline. Now you know what to do and when to do it. Now go back to notes page 1, please. Notes page 1. Now my question to you before we look at this particular aspect is everyone going to start Medicare at 65? And the answer is no. No, you or your spouse are going to keep on working. You're not going to retire now. You're not going to take Medicare now, Social Security now. You're waiting. But eventually you are going to retire and you are going to lose that health insurance plan. Now you may be 67, 69, whatever age, but eventually you're going to retire and lose the plan. So the question is, how do we come into Medicare without any penalties and without any problems at a later date? Now, let me just quickly tell you this. The oldest folks I've ever put into Medicare so far was a lady who was 79. Her husband was 83. She actually was an accountant and had a wonderful job and didn't retire until 79. They were both covered by that employer-provided plan that many years. They've never, ever used Medicare. So how does a 79 to 83-year-old couple come into Medicare without penalties, without problems? Well, they use a different process. That initial enrollment period is long gone. Remember, that revolved around the 65th birthday. That's way past. So how do they come in without penalties and problems? They come in using what's called the special enrollment period and the process that applies to this. Now, this special enrollment period is for those who didn't enroll at 65. Why? They didn't need to, because they chose to continue to be covered by that employer plan. They liked the plan. It was good financially. And everything about the plan they liked, they stayed on it. But now they've lost the plan. So how do we come in at a later date? So let me explain how this works. This is a different process. Now, we always start this process online, but we can't complete it online. And the reason for that is because now we have to go back, and let's just use this couple. She was 79, he was 83. Okay, now what we have to do is we have to go all the way back to 65. And we have to prove that they have been working, so we're gonna prove for the employer, and we also have to prove you had insurance. Okay, that you've been working and I've had insurance. So from the 83, go all the way back here. And so we got to track all the way back. So if I'm 69, I got to go back 4 years. If I'm 72, I got to go back 7 years. Here, I'm going to have to go back 14. Here, 18 years. So we got to go all the way back. And what I want you to learn from this is I want no gaps in your coverage. So if you decide to work past 65 and not go on Medicare, you want to make sure you always have insurance. That may be COBRA for a month or two. Hopefully it's an employer-provided plan. If you ever go without, you're going to have problems because we have to have every month accounted for from the time of when you actually retire all the way back to 65. Now, the way we do this is different. What happens, I'm going to show you these documents, and I know you can't see them, but I want to make a point. This one is titled Request for Employment Information. And your name and address and social security number is put on here. And if your spouse is covered by the group plan as well, each of you have one of these forms. And this document is given to your HR department, Human Resource Department, and they have to fill this out. That's how we verify that you've had employment and insurance during that particular period of time. All right, so this has to be filled out. This is called, if you want to jot it down, a CMS L564. CMS L564. Now listen, if you're coming into Medicare at 65, you don't need this. This is for people coming in later, all right? So we have to have this document filled out by your HR department. If you've had 2 employees during this time, we're going to have 2 of these forms, whatever it takes to get back to 65. Then there's a second document, and we just put these together for our workshop, but it's a second document. This is called a CMS 40B. And you'll notice if this is the name, address, and social security number, everything. But at the very bottom here, you'll see a lot of white space. Well, what we put in here is, in this situation, under special enrollment, you get to pick when you want to start. So right now, we're putting on this form, please begin my Medicare benefits effective January 1, 2020, or begin December 1, 2019. So we actually pick the month. And again, 90 days prior to losing the group plan or going into retirement, you can do this paperwork. So one, your employer fills out. The other one, you fill out, picking the date that you want to start your Medicare coverage. And then what we have is we have a trip down to the local Social Security office. Now, they'll tell you, you can mail them in, you can fax them in. I would just tell you, I wouldn't do that. If you're able to go to a Social Security office, I would do that. I would go into the office, I would take a number, I'd take a turn, and go to the counter and be sure that that paperwork is filled out, and then they'll get it processed. We've had lots of folks who mail it in or drop them off and don't see anyone, or they fax it in, wasn't filled out properly or didn't get processed, and then you got to go through that whole thing again. So it's just not worth the hassle. So just a heads up, you want to personally hand deliver that to them if you can at all. All right, that's the way we do it. So that's a whole different process than the initial enrollment period. You got to do this. All right, so this next statement has to do with using the special enrollment period. Now these statements come right out of a book. That's a wonderful resource called Medicare and You. Many of you probably received in the mail. Others of you maybe picked one up at a Social Security office. You can download these, but this is a great resource. Lots of good information. I read about half a dozen times every year. I teach a lot of people, and we want to be very up to date and accurate in what we teach. And so good resource. I like all the preventive stuff that's in the book as well. But out of that book comes this particular statement here. You can use the special enrollment period and sign up and start Medicare coverage anytime that you're still working. So let me tell you what that means. Once you reach 65, those of you that are going to keep working, every year your employer is going to go through what they would call an open enrollment season, a time for you to be able to look at next year's health insurance plans through the employer. And what we would encourage you to do, if you're Medicare eligible now, you're beyond 65, look at what the employer has to offer and compare that to what Medicare has to offer. I would tell you there's probably 40% of all people now that are still working that are on Medicare. Why? Because Medicare was a better option for them than the group plan. And we'll have people ask us all the time, Marvin, will you help me to make that decision, to analyze that, to see if it really is in my best interest? Happy to do that for you, okay? Now, if you want us to help you, jot this down. Here's what we want to know. I want to know the premium that you're paying for your plan. In other words, what are you having payroll deducted? What's your cost of the plan? Not what the employer pays, but what you pay. Your premium. Number 2, what is your deductible, and do you ever meet that deductible? Number 3, I want to know the co-insurance part of the plan. Most insurances have a co-insurance, you know, the 90-10, 80-20. So what is your part of that after the deductible is met? And then what's the max out of pocket? What's the most you'd ever spend in any given year? This would be if you got cancer, what's the most you'd spend? $5,000, $10,000, whatever. And then I want to know about your medications. Group plans at work typically have a little bit better prescription drug coverage than what Medicare is going to have. Medicare is certainly fine, but groups are usually better. And so I want to know about that. So if you're on a lot of expensive meds, we'll probably say stay right on that group plan while you're working. Okay, so that's what I have to know. Premium, deductible, do you meet it, co-insurance, max out of pocket, and medications. Now, if you happen to be married to someone that is on the group plan that's also Medicare eligible, here's what I want to know about your premium. I want to know employee-only price and employee plus spouse price. Okay, it is not uncommon today for employee-only maybe to be $100, $150 a month. We have this spouse, now we're spending $400, $500 a month. So what's it costing you to cover your Medicare eligible spouse? And I will tell you, if it's more than $250, $300 a month, probably paying too much, probably would be wise for that spouse to go on Medicare. So it's not uncommon today where we'll say, let's keep the employee only on that group plan at work, but let's take the Medicare eligible spouse and put them on Medicare. That makes sense in a lot of instances, but we're happy to help you to make that decision. And I promise you, we'll tell you the truth. If it's in your best interest to stay right where you are, we'll tell you so. We would never want someone to be hurt by your decision to get off the group plan and going on Medicare. Let's say maybe a younger spouse or maybe children that are covered by the plans. They can be covered up to 26. So we just don't want to hurt anyone by you doing that. But if no one's going to be adversely affected, and if it makes sense, then we'll recommend that as well. All right. Another thing which this statement means is you can do this while you're still working. This would be someone who has set the retirement date. So let's just say, in fact, I had a gentleman I helped yesterday. His last day of work is December 31, and he's going to start Medicare January 1. Okay, well, yesterday was October 18th, right? So what we did while he's still working, we're going to go through this process. Get the HR to document that he's worked there, his insurance. We pick the month. We're going to start Medicare January 1, 2020. And he's going to take those documents down to the Social Security office. So he's doing all this preparatory work while he's still working. Because why? Well, we know his group plan is going to end December 31, and we're going to start Medicare January 1. So we're going to do all this in advance. So that everything is set up, is Medicare set up, other insurance that he may want to go along with that. We have people ask us all the time, well, when do we call you? Folks, we like to hear from you 60 to 90 days before you lose the group plan. 120 days or 180, it's too much in advance. These companies and Social Security, Medicare, they just don't want your forms yet. So 60 to 90 days is the perfect timeline to get organized before your official retirement date. All right, so that's what that means. One more thing here. You can use the SEP, this is the special enrollment period, to sign up and start Medicare coverage. Now watch this, please. Very important statement. Often misinterpreted. You can do this SEP anytime within 8 months after your current or your active employment provided coverage ends. So that's a mouthful. It came right out of that book word for word. Here's what it means. This is someone who has made the decision to not take Medicare at 65. They were covered by their group plan or maybe their spouses. And let's say they're 69 years old and they show up to work and they're now terminated. They just got fired, or maybe the whole department's going to get laid off, the whole company's shutting down, but something has happened very abruptly. They've not taken Medicare because they had a good group plan, and now they have a loss of insurance. Now the question is, if this happens to you, if you're 69 or even 79 or 83, and you lose your plan at work quickly, do you have to panic about Medicare? And the answer is no. Now, you may panic about other things, but you don't have to panic about Medicare, because Medicare says if you chose to delay taking A and B, then you can have up to 8 months to enroll into Medicare after you lost the group plan. 8 months. Now, folks, it doesn't take 8 months. In fact, in all my experience in this business, I've never seen anyone ever use the full 8 months. We've had people use a month or two. That made sense based upon their severance package or whatever. But it doesn't take 8 months, but we still have 8 months, so we're not going to panic. But the second reason we put this up in here is this. Does it say that you can use the SEP to sign up and start your Medicare coverage anytime within 8 months after you lose your retiree insurance? Doesn't say that, does it? How about 8 months after you lose your COBRA insurance? Doesn't say that either. 8 months after you lose your ACA plan? Doesn't say that either. Meaning the special enrollment period does not belong to everyone. It only belongs to people who are working, who have said, I'm not going to take Medicare now, or their spouse working, not going to take Medicare now. So what they did is they didn't take Medicare during their initial enrollment period. And they're going to come in later. So they are at least 65 now and 4 months old on. And the only way to come into Medicare during this period of time is using the special enrollment period. It's the only way you can do it. And this special enrollment period lasts for 8 months after you lost the job. But if I'm covered by a retirement plan, COBRA insurance, or ACA plan, I'm starting here. This is not an eligibility for me. All right, so we want to make sure, because many people read that statement confused by it and they think everyone has 8 months. No, you don't. Only if you or your spouse keep working do you have 8 months. All right, now here's the summary. So here's your enrollment periods that are available. Number one, if you're going to start at 65, we'll use the initial enrollment period. How long does that last? 7 months, 3 months before, month of, 3 months after our 65th birth month. If we're going to keep working and stay on an employer-provided plan and then later retire, we're going to use the special enrollment period, and we're clearly 65 and 4 months old or beyond. And that's the SEP in that process. All right, so those are the two everyone viewing with us today ought to be using. One of those two only. Now, the last one is available. This is when those people who are coming into Medicare and they missed these, procrastination, misinformation, whatever caused it, but they made a mistake. Here's the problem. You just can't enroll anytime you want to. If you missed these two, you can only enroll using general enrollment the first 3 months of the year. So if someone realized they made a mistake and it's April, it's too late. You have to wait till next first quarter, next year to enroll. So that enrollment period only lasts for 3 months, and then coverage begins July 1, and there's always a penalty that's attached to that. For every year you go without, they charge you a 10% penalty for Medicare B, and it is for life. All right? So that's the way that works. Okay, so those are your opportunities to come into Medicare. Now, that should have concluded notes page 1. Now, with that page done, I want you to go now to that Medicare grid. And of course, you can see it here is what it looks like. I'm going to start going through original Medicare A and B. So let's start with Medicare A. A is called hospitalization insurance. And you're going to notice that most people do not have to pay a premium for A. Why? Because you have 40 quarters at least, and you've been paying in that system all your life, and Medicare says, we'll give you A and those benefits with no premium whatsoever to you. Now, I want you to know how A premiums are calculated so you're clear. In a few minutes, I'm going to teach you about B premiums, but here's the A premiums. You're going to notice that if I have 40 quarters, or a spouse does, that my A costs me nothing monthly. But if I have 39 quarters to 30, I have to pay for it, $232 every month. If I have 29 or less, I got to pay a premium $422. Now, if someone doesn't have their own 40 quarters, and we'd like to get from a spouse, but if we cannot, then what happens? Now we're going to have to pay for it, and there's lots of people who have to do this. Now, let me just share this with you because I think it's important to know in case there's someone that is watching that you don't have your own 40 and you can't draw from someone else's. All right? We meet people all the time that have 36, 38 quarters. So what do you do? Well, if we can get to 40, we encourage you to do so by going back to work. And the way a quarter works this year, it's $1,320. And that is just taxable income. That could be self-employment wages. It could be a W-2 income, but it just has to be income that you've made $1,320. Now, that may take you a week to do that or a month to do that. Doesn't matter. Once you have that income, you got a quarter. So if I need 2 quarters, if I make $2,640, I just picked up 2 quarters. Doesn't matter how long. And then if I need 4, I can make, what is that, $5,280. Gives me my 4 quarters. So if I'm close, if you can't draw from a present spouse or a previous spouse, then we encourage you, can you go back to work and make that kind of money? And you can see I don't have to work the whole year. I just got to make a certain dollar amount. And Medicare very wisely implemented this system when they started in 1965 because they knew there would be seasonal workers. And they knew people would maybe only work 6 months a year, 9 months a year, and they wanted them to get their 4 quarters in every year. So they tied these quarters to a dollar amount. So that's taxable income, self-employment wages or W-2. So if you're close, you may want to do that so you can get up in this column and have Part A at 0 for the rest of your life. If you can't do that, can't return to work, never been married, then you'll have to be paying for your Part A benefits. All right, so here's the way it works if we're going to use Part A, hospitalization. It is called an open access system. This means no networks. And I can assure you, every hospital that I'm aware of, I've never heard of a hospital that didn't take Medicare money. And so as long as a hospital takes Medicare money, you can go to any hospital that you want to go to, okay? Totally, no network, open access. What's covered under Part A? Everything that would be related to inpatient hospital care, meaning I've been admitted to the hospital, room and board, nursing services, tests, all the things that the hospital can charge A will pay a portion of the bills. Skilled nursing facility. Now, this is nothing more, folks, than inpatient rehab. If a doc says you need rehab, doc has three choices. Send you home, we call it home health care, send you to an outpatient clinic, maybe 3 days a week for rehab, or admit you to a facility. That's what this is. This is very common after a stroke, maybe some type of an injury, maybe a hip replacement, something like that, where you've got to go to skilled nursing for some fairly intensive rehab. A will pay the bills for that. Hospice. The majority of people today that are on hospice have been diagnosed with a terminal illness. Now, I know not everyone on hospice is terminal. I got that, okay, but many, many are. And so hospice bills for pain management and all those kind of end-of-life type services, A is going to pay the hospice bills, and frankly pays quite well on those. And then lastly, we have home health care. Home health care is used frequently because it's more cost efficient. And so this scenario is someone who is in the hospital, really doing pretty well, ready to go home, not quite healed up, where they do need some attention. So they send them home, and the home health care agency that's approved by Medicare will be paid through the A of Medicare because it started here. You'll see home health care in a minute on the B of Medicare, but here it's covered because it started in A. So basically, home health care stays wherever it starts for the bills. All right, so those are the main items covered by A. Financially, here's what it looks like. We have a deductible this year of $1,364. A deductible means that this is what you have to pay financially, and then Medicare is going to pay after that. So $1,364 deductible. After that, Medicare begins to pay. Now, you're going to notice that $1,364 deductible is your full out-of-pocket, your max out-of-pocket, your full financial responsibility to the hospital for up to a 60-day stay. 60 days. So it doesn't matter whether you're in, 1 day or 3 days or 30 days or 60 days. Anything between 1 to 60, that's all you pay. The bill could be $50,000, the bill could be $500,000. Makes no difference. You pay $1,364 and Medicare takes care of the rest. And in case you don't know, that's a bargain. Okay, it's a real bargain. Average care right now in the hospital is about $5,000 average a day. Intensive care, those kind of critical care, $20,000 a day. So this is a bargain. That's all you have to pay is $1,364 in the form of deductible. Medicare pays after that. Now, there's one other thing about this deductible that's unique to Medicare, and that is it is tied not to a year, an annual deductible. It's a benefit period. And again, no one does this but Medicare. So the benefit period begins when you're admitted to the hospital. And let's say we go home 5 days later. That's the average right now. We go home 5 days later. My benefit period from this point of being discharged will continue for a full another 60 days. And if anything happens from the day I'm discharged for the next 60 days, it would cause me to be rehospitalized. I am under the same deductible and I'm under the same benefit period. But let's say I'm hospitalized. I go home 5 days later. I'm discharged. 60 days goes by. Nothing happens during that 60-day window, but it happens after that. I now have to go back to the hospital. I will start a new benefit period and I will pay another deductible. Let's suppose I get pneumonia in February. I'm hospitalized for it. Let's say it's a real bad case, 7 days in. Finally get discharged, go home, doing great, and then we get an ice storm in maybe December. And I trip and fall, break my leg, I go to the hospital, have to be operated on. There's certainly 60 days between February and December. So I would pay the deductible twice that year. So it's not annual, it's tied to the benefit period. All right, so again, unique to Medicare. Now, if I happen to be in the hospital longer than 60 continuous days, meaning I was never discharged in 60 days, notice Medicare provides 3 more months of coverage, but now they start charging daily copays. These are called extended stays. They are rare, but when they occur, they're expensive. And so this next month here, this is the 3rd month, you're paying $341 a day. That's $10,000. The next 2 months, month 4 and month 5, $682 a day. So each of those months are $20,000 out of your pocket. And so these are your responsibilities. Again, they don't happen often, but when they do, they are quite expensive. My father-in-law actually passed away. He was on dialysis, really, frankly, pretty healthy, other than dialysis, and he got MRSA through the mishandling of diabetic equipment. And so very sad he got MRSA, eventually went into coma, was in the hospital this long, and passed away during those extended stay visits. So it does happen, and when it happens, the point is it's very expensive. And that's why I was telling you earlier, it's pretty unwise to have A and B only, in case this were to happen to you. In fact, there's many who will have extended comas, and Medicare only covers up to 150 days, and that's it. you're responsible after that. So most of the supplemental plans will cover you a whole another year in the hospital at no cost to you whatsoever if you ever had one of those kind of a coma situations. All right, so that is Medicare A hospital. Now let's talk about Medicare A skilled nursing. Here's the way it works. Medicare says the first 20 days in the skilled nursing facility, they will pay everything. Now listen, they attach one very important rule to that, and that is we must be in the hospital a minimum of 72 hours, 3 full days. And as long as we've had that 3 full days, then the doc can put us in skilled nursing. Medicare covers everything the first 20 days. It doesn't cost us a penny. If I'm in longer than 20 days now, I'll have another 80 days of coverage. Medicare pays everything, but I now have a daily copay of $170.50. Now, folks, Medicare is dead serious about this 3-day requirement. We had a guy just recently we helped. He was telling us about his mother-in-law. She was in the hospital 5 days under observation. They never admitted her. So she's in observation 5 days, and then they made a decision they want to send her to skilled nursing. What do you think Medicare said to that? We're not paying. She was never admitted, and they're serious about it. So you've got to be 3 days in the hospital prior to going to skilled nursing if they're going to pay anything. All right, so that is Medicare A. Now, let's go to Medicare B. Right next to that column, you'll see B. B is called medical. This is pretty much everything outpatient. And you're going to notice when it comes to the premium, it is not free like A. The premium is also not calculated based upon quarters. The premium is based upon income. So that will take us to that sheet called the green sheet. So I want you to pull that out, and let's go through that together. So you learned how A premiums are calculated. Now let's talk about B. So here's the way it works for Part B. When you enroll into Medicare yourself, because you're not on Social Security, or you're automatically enrolled into Medicare because you are on Social Security, what happens is Medicare contacts the IRS, and they let them know you're going on Medicare and when that's going to happen. And the IRS is going to report back to Medicare your income. And that certain income is an income we call the modified adjusted gross income. Modified adjusted gross. And it's real simple. We are all very familiar with our adjusted gross income. We know that number. The way it's modified is this. If this applies to you, they're going to add back in tax-free interest income. Tax-free interest. Typically, municipal bonds, you're not paying federal taxes, but you report those on your returns. So they take AGI, they add tax-free interest income, and that becomes your modified adjusted gross. So if I'm going to start Medicare this year, 2019, they're looking back at 2017 modified adjusted gross, and the IRS will report that number back, and then that number will determine how much I pay for my Part B. So notice on the chart, if I'm a single filer, single, not married, file an individual return, if I have $85,000 or less modified adjusted gross, I pay $135.50 for my Part B premium. That's all I pay, $135.50. Comes out of my Social Security check, or they'll bill me quarterly until I start Social Security. If you're a couple, each of you, if you're both Medicare eligible, would pay $135.50 if your income is $170,000 or less. All right? But if your income is going to be higher, I just give you one that kind of comes to my mind. A gentleman we work with this year, he was right here at $290,000. He and his wife just retiring, going on Medicare. So notice they're going to have to pay extra for their Part B, an extra $216.70. And you can see on that chart, that is called an IRMA. It's an acronym which stands for Income Related Monthly Adjusted Amount. That's a surcharge that high-income people have to pay. So they're going to pay $135.50 plus the IRMA. So that's their total because of their income. All right? And so this next column says and shows you that not only does your high income affect you on the B of Medicare, but also for your drug plans. Now, I'm going to tell you about drug plans a little bit later, but basically drug plans right now throughout the country range from about $13 to about $90. There are some a little bit above that, but rarely do people have those plans. But let's call it $13 to $90. The average right now across the country is right about $30 a month. So let's call it $30 for a Part D plan. So if my income is $170,000 or less as a couple, I just pay that Part D premium, $30 to the insurance company. $85,000 or less as a single, just pay the premium only. But this couple at $290, they have to add $51.40 to that drug plan. So they'll pay $30 plus their IRMA. All right? So your high income is going to affect your B and your D. Now notice, 19, they're looking at 17. 20, what are they going to look at? 2018. So these numbers are recalculated every year. In 2021, they're going to look at this year. So they always look back too. Now, there are times when people are making this kind of money, but that changes when they retire. And so you're going to see on that green sheet at the very bottom, we talk about this life-changing event. And you're going to notice there's 8 of those. And there's only 8, folks. I've had people call me and they say, well, if this happened to me, you think they'll use that? No. No. Okay, there's no gray area with it. Black and white. These are the life-changing events that allow you to qualify to try to appeal to IRMA. You've got to put the date in there, and that date needs to be within the last couple of years, or now moving forward, a 2-year period of time. And they're going to look at this, and if you have one of these life-changing events, then you have the ability to say, my situation has changed. I'm starting in 19. I don't want you to look at 17. Okay, I'm starting in 20. I don't want you to look at 18. I want you to look now. I want you to look this year, or we can project for next year. And so we're saying, don't look back. We want to move forward. Here's our new numbers now that we retired. Now, this couple I just told you about, great example of this, actually, because he was at 290, and I said, well, what are you going to make moving forward? And it's going to be $125,000. Okay, well below the 170. And so what did we do? We filled out the appeal paperwork. And by the way, we're happy you work with us to show you how all this is done, do it for you, actually. And so we appealed it, and we put $125,000. This is what we're going to make moving forward. And he took those documents down to the local Social Security office, and he turned those in, and he won the appeal. They will never fight you on this. As long as your numbers have changed, they will drop off the IRMAs on the B and the D. You don't have to pay those. So it's well worth your time to make that appeal. Now, I actually worked with a guy earlier this week. What happened with him, he was right here in his income, and he's going to move to this level. It's not going all the way down, but notice it's still worth his time. Because instead of having to pay $297 extra, now he has to pay $54.10 extra. And so the drug plan $70.90, now it's just $12.40. So even if we don't get to go all the way down, we'll appeal to move down some portion of that. All right, so that's called appealing the IRMA. So our income is what determines our Part B as well as our Part D. All right, so enough of the green sheet there. Hopefully that makes sense to you. Happy to clarify that privately if we need to. All right, now let's go to this topic, and that is the coverages of the Medicare Part B. So you're back on your grid. And we're going to see again that this Part B of Medicare is an open access system, which means there's no networks at all. As long as that physician, that surgeon takes Medicare, you can go anywhere you want to. No networks, open access. What's covered under B? Everything that would be related to outpatient services. So this would be labs and MRIs and maybe cataract surgery, things like that. Doctors and specialists that you would go to see in their office, or they come to see you in the hospital, or take care of you in the hospital. B always pays the doctors. A paid the hospital, the facility fees, but B pays the docs, anesthesiologists, your surgeons, hospitalists, those kinds of docs, paid through B. Primary care docs, obviously specialists as well. Now, durable medical equipment is also paid through B. If you have sleep apnea, you probably have a CPAP machine. That's a durable medical equipment. If you're on oxygen, or maybe have a scooter, wheelchair, walker, beds in the home that are medically necessary, that's durable medical equipment. Those of you that use an external insulin pump, that is called durable medical equipment. And the good news for you, if you use an external pump, that insulin that's going to go through the pump to take care of your insulin needs is also paid through B. I didn't say all insulin's paid through B, because it's not, but the insulin going through the pump is. Some of you ladies have been diagnosed with osteoporosis, maybe osteopenia, and you probably are or have been taking, or maybe will take Prolia shots. Prolia shots typically administered twice a year, every 6 months. They're $1,200 a piece. But because you go to a facility to have those shots taken, that's going to be paid through B. It's in an outpatient clinic or maybe a doc's office. So the B will pay for that, not your drug plan. All right? Okay, so that's what durable medical equipment is. Home health care. You'll recall we saw home health care on the A of Medicare. It's on the B. Why? Because this is someone that had an outpatient surgery, goes home, needs some follow-up, and that agency is going to pay through a B for the home health care needs. And then lastly on this will be preventive services. Now I want to draw your attention to the pink sheet. That's that third sheet that we gave to you. It has a list of preventive services. And what I want you to see from this is this. Medicare B will pay for the preventive services. Right now, your present insurance company is paying for that. Ladies have a list of things that they qualify for. Men have a list. Our list varies depending upon age, gender, and health history. But if it's on your list of preventive services, it's B that will pay for that. Now, I want to give you one very important heads up, because we'll get a call from people, usually on a monthly basis. Someone will call in, and they're upset. They're brand new on Medicare, went for their annual checkup, and they're getting a sizable bill. And so what happened in this scenario is they went to the doc, and they go into the doc, and they say, Doc, I'm on Medicare. I want my preventive, my annual. And then they'll tell the doctor what they want. And they'll say, Doc, I want this and this and this and this and this and this. Well, doctor orders all that. That's what you wanted. And then they file the claims, and Medicare says, we're going to pay for this, this, and this. We call that preventive, but all this other, we're not going to pay for. And then you get a bill for all those other things. And the reason for that is because you don't get to set the rules for what's preventive. You have got to tell the doctor, Doc, I want whatever Medicare is going to pay for preventive. If you need all the other items there, then that'll be a different code. It'll be diagnostic codes. And then Medicare probably will pay for that. But if Medicare says it's not considered preventive by them, then there's no code for it, and you're going to be responsible for that. All right, so be sure that you just say, Doc, whatever Medicare pays for, that's what I want on my annual checkup. That's called preventive, paid through B. Everything else would be paid through B, but it'll be a different coding system. All right, so hopefully that all makes sense to you. B will pay for it. Now, financially, here's what it looks like. We have a deductible this year of $185. This is called the B deductible, and it is a calendar year. So if I'm going to start Medicare in November, this is my deductible for 2 months, right? They don't prorate it. It's $185 per calendar year. Then this number will reset every January. Every January it resets. Last year, 2018, it was $183. They moved it up $2. I don't know what it'll be next year. The numbers are not out yet, but whatever it is, that's what you're responsible for the B deductible. And then after that deductible is satisfied, Medicare is an 80-20 plan. Medicare pays 80 and you pay 20. Now, we tell our clients this all the time. You need to be paying attention. You need to be proactive to make sure that Medicare pays their 80%, and it's very easy to do. Every time you need any kind of healthcare service, you're asking 2 questions. You ask the provider, do you take Medicare? Find out. Most do, but still find out. Don't assume, but ask. Do you take Medicare? Again, most do. So you've asked that question. Question number 2, if that provider is recommending anything, durable medical equipment, labs, test or procedure, surgery, whatever they're recommending, you're going to ask, is Medicare going to cover this? And so if we're seeing a Medicare provider and Medicare is going to cover it, which they call being medically necessary, then that's when Medicare pays 80%. Okay, but let's suppose we go to a chiropractor. I'll use this as an example. And you may see a chiropractor that takes Medicare. But the only thing that Medicare says they'll cover that is medically necessary at the chiropractor's office is the adjustment of the spine. No x-rays, no acupuncture, no heat therapy or whatever therapy you need. That's not covered by Medicare. You'll be 100% responsible for that. But on the adjustment, Medicare pays 80, you pay 20. So that's why you ask, Doc, do you take Medicare? And will this be covered? And when it is, they pay 80, you pay 20. Now your part we call co-insurance. Now remember, in health business, we have 2 types of payments. We have co-payments. That's a flat dollar amount, $5 copay, $25 copay. And we have co-insurance. That's a percentage of the bill approved by Medicare. Your responsibility is 20%. And your 20% co-insurance is actually your greatest liability today on Medicare because of this next statement. Your 20% is unlimited. Totally, totally unlimited, which means sky's the limit, right? And one of the biggest issues is where the exposure comes from, because this is where all the doctors are paid, right? And doctors are worth their weight in gold. I mean, I'm glad they make great income, and they deserve that. Highly educated, smart people, defer their income for a long time, all those kind of things. But the problem is you're responsible for 20% of what that doctor makes unless you have insurance to cover that. So this is your greatest exposure, 20%. That is totally unlimited. Sky's the limit on that. Now we can stop it with insurance. That's why I said it's pretty unwise to have A and B only. Need something else to take care of that 20%. Then lastly, we're going to note that there are 2 types of doctors that are in the Medicare system. One type of doctor takes Medicare approved reimbursement amounts as payment in full, doesn't bill anything extra. Another doctor will add to the bill. That is called an excess charge. And when a doctor does that, they're allowed to do it, and you have to pay for it. So here's the way the system works. This doctor is called an assignment doctor. It does not add anything to the bill. Medicare says $100 bill, they pay 80, you pay 20. This would be like a cardiologist specialist visit, right? But a doctor that doesn't take assignment adds 15% to the bill. And now we have a $115 bill. Medicare still pays the same, 80% of their amount. Now you pay 20% co-insurance, 15% excess charge, so now you're responsible for $35. Okay, now in my example, we're not concerned about an extra $15. We can all afford to write a check for $15 extra. Here's my concern, and why I mentioned this in our workshop. You may go to a surgeon that takes assignment or one that doesn't. The assignment surgery, approved for 10, Medicare pays 8, you pay 2. Excess charge, now we have an extra $1,500. Medicare didn't change their payment. They still pay 8 of the original amount, and now you have a balance of $3,500. And again, you may have the wherewithal to write that check, but you are going to be frustrated because you have to do that. Now, Medicare tells us right now that 85 to 90% of doctors take assignment, 10 to 15% do this. That's the way it is in 2019. My problem is I don't know what that's going to look like in 10, 15, 20 years. Some of you are going to be on Medicare 20, 30 years. And so for all I know, half the docs will be charging excess or all of them. I just don't know what that system will look like. So I'm concerned about the risk of excess. All right, and if you share that concern, then what a lot of people are doing to cover that is they will get a supplemental plan that'll take care of the excess. And by the way, just so you know, you go to Mayo Clinic, they always charge excess as far as the physicians do. All right? Okay, so on the market right now, we have two plans that are available to some of you. Those are plans F and G. F and G. So if you're born before January 1st, 1955, you have both of these. If you're born after January 1st, 55, you only have a G plan. But both of these plans will take care of the excess for you. So if it ever occurs, it's your financial responsibility. You can transfer that risk to a supplemental plan F or G, and they'll take care of it for you. If you get some of the other plans that are available, that plan may pay some of the co-insurance, but you would always be responsible for excess. And again, I'm concerned about it because I think this could be a reality in the future, and so that's the way to take care of it. All right, now, we should have finished the grid. I want you to go to the notes section, please. Let's go back to notes. I told you I had just a couple of quick statements I want to clarify about A and also about B, and then we'll proceed. So this is notes page 2. So here's the first statement. When turning 65, if you or your spouse still employed, covered by an employer-provided plan, enrollment into Part A is not required. It's not required, and to enroll may not be in your best interest. Now, please understand, if you are not working and your spouse is not working, we are enrolling in A and B, okay? But I'm only addressing those of you that are you're not going on Medicare 65 because one of you work. The question is, do you have to take Part A? And the answer is, no, you don't. It's not required. Now, most of you have heard that if you don't take A at 65, you're going to be penalized. That is absolutely not true. Here's the truth. If Medicare Part A is free, why is it free? Because you or your spouse have 40 Social Security quarters. A late enrollment penalty is never, ever, ever assessed. Well, who has to pay penalties for Part A? Well, the people who have to buy Part A. Remember that? Only those who have to pay a premium for Part A, the ones who have to buy it. Why? Because they have less than 40 quarters. So if we have someone that has less than 40 quarters, what do? We ask them, well, have you ever been married? If they can't, never been married, they can't go back to work, now they're going to pay a penalty for their Part A for the rest of their life. But if A is free, it is always free to you. And we have made a note here that it may not be in your best interest to take it anyways because of this. Many of you today are covered by high deductible health plans. With that high deductible health plan is also typically a health savings account, HSAs. They're like healthcare IRAs. Those are tax deductible, tax exempt if you use them for medical expenses, and so they're wonderful. But if you take any part of Medicare, A or B or both, you have to stop your contributions to your HSA. You're ineligible to make those. And so there's a lot of people that talk about this penalty and they'll enroll in it because they hear about this penalty, but they don't realize that you just shot yourself in the foot because no new contributions to an HSA. All right, and so that's the rules of that. So we want to be sure that you're aware of it. And then also, I want to remind you of this as well. This is very, very important for retirement. Let's suppose that you keep working and you're going to work to 66, full retirement age, and you're contributing to an HSA. Here's what I want you to do. At 65 and a half, stop your HSA contributions, because when you retire at 66 and enroll into Medicare, they're going to make your A date backdated 6 months. Your B date will be at 66, but your A is always backdated 6 months. Now, they'll never go back beyond 65, but they'll take your retirement date, move it back 6 months. And so that's why you'll read in the fine print or talk to people who know something about this business where they'll say, stop contributing to an HSA 6 months before you officially retire and go on Medicare. All right? So that's the way that works. Next, this chart just shows you the ones who have to pay the penalty. Remember, these folks that have to buy it have to pay it. So if they have a 10% penalty, it's added to that. 20% penalty, whatever is added to that. What's 1,000% of zero? Zero, right? So if A is free, it's always free. The penalty is always a percentage. And so if you have it free, you'll always get it for free. All right, now let's go to the statements on B. When turning 65, if you or your spouse are still working, you're covered by an employer-provided plan. Enrollment into Part B is not required, A or B. And it may be best to delay that Part B enrollment until that employment ends. So you have made the choice to keep working, or your spouse is, you're going to be covered by the plan, you're 69 years old, you show up and you just got fired, or your wife just showed up and she got fired, and do you have to panic about Medicare? And the answer is no. Why? Because if we delay taking, we're going to come into Medicare using the special enrollment period, and from when that employment ends, we have 8 months to come into Medicare. So that's why we don't panic. It's fine to do. And then this B statement says Parts A and B of Original Medicare can be enhanced or improved by purchasing separate MedSup plans, and you buy these from private health insurance companies. All right? So the question is always, well, why would we need to improve upon Original Medicare? Okay, so I'm going to address the answer to that question. Why do we need to enhance or improve Medicare? So I want you to now go back to your grid. So we're done with notes page 2 for now. Go back to the grid, please. And let's do a quick review. Now, when you're on the grid, if you go to the hospital, is it free? And the answer is no, it's not free. There's a deductible, $1,340 right now, right? In fact, yeah. So we have the A deductible, that's our responsibility, the $1,340. And then if you're in the hospital longer than 60 days, is it free? And the answer is no. We have a daily copay on that third month of $341. So you do the math, that's $10,000 that you pay on the third month if you're in the hospital. Month 4 and 5, are they free? The answer is no. $682 a day copay. Do the math, that's $20,000 month 4, $20,000 month 5. So it's not free. It's very, very expensive for extended hospital stays. Now, if we go to a skilled nursing facility, Medicare said they will pay everything for the first 20 days with one requirement. What is it? 3 days in the hospital or longer, 72 hours or longer. Then we can go to skilled nursing and they'll pay everything first 20. After that, is it free? The answer is no. We have a daily copay, $170.50, that we're responsible for. So those are your gaps or your liabilities financially when it comes to Part A. Now let's look at Part B. Part B has a very low deductible. This year it's $185. That's once a year. That calendar year it resets every January. And so after we have met our deductible, is Medicare free? And the answer is no. Medicare is going to pay $80 and you pay $20. What's the problem with your 20%? Your 20% is totally unlimited. Sky's the limit. And it means you're responsible for 20% of whatever the doctor bill is, right? And then lastly, you could go to a physician that has the right to add to the bill. What's the most they can add to the bill? 15%. That's called an excess charge. And whenever that happens, who pays for it? You do. And so you're responsible for those 3 gaps on the B of Medicare. So the majority of people who will look at that grid and they see their financial liability, their exposure, they'll say, I'm really not comfortable assuming all that. So they'll take that liability and they will transfer that liability to an insurance company. Okay, and this is what we do in all insurance. We transfer our liability to the insurance company and we pay them a premium. So why do we have homeowners insurance or auto insurance? Because we don't want the liability of our home burning down or wrecking our car, right? So we transfer the liability away, we get a policy, and we pay them a premium to take that liability from us. So when you buy a Medigap or a Medicare supplemental policy, those are synonymous, you're transferring away the risk of those gaps, either fully or almost in full, and you pay an insurance company a premium to take that from you. All right, so those are Medigap policies, transference of risk. Right now, there are 10 of them. They're on the market. These are all available throughout the country. Well, I shouldn't say that. Most states, they're available. And these are given a certain letter. Now, the insurance companies make them available, but Medicare came up with a numbering system, these letters. And each of these letters represents a different amount of coverage, filling in the gaps differently, maybe in full or almost in full. So whatever letter we buy, that is going to represent the coverage that we have by our Medicare supplemental company. And these plans are standardized by Medicare, which means they offer the same benefits regardless of who you buy the plan from. That letter will give you the same coverage regardless of the insurance company. That's standardized. So a couple quick examples real quickly. These are the most common plans right now, and that would be the F plan. And F was the dominant plan. I think probably 50-60% of all Americans up to this point in time that had a supplemental plan have been covered by an F plan. So millions and millions of people. The F plan is the plan that covers all the gaps. We just went through all of them, all 3 on the A and all 3 on the B, which means you had full coverage, which meant as long as Medicare paid first, F picked up the full balance, you should never see a bill. All right, and so that was the F plan, covered everything. And that's the plan that has dominated the market until the last couple years. Things began to change because the government decided they were going to phase out the F plans. And it took them a couple years to come up with exactly the way they're going to do it. They finally settled on the terminology. So here's the way it works. Someone that is going to start Medicare 1/1/2020 on cannot get an F plan. You just cannot buy them anymore. Everyone prior to 1/1/20, they're starting Medicare. Basically, those that are born before January 1st, 1955, that are starting Medicare. You can still buy F plans. You can buy them and you can keep them for the rest of your life. But for anyone born after that, no F plans are available to you. Now, in the great majority of markets, shouldn't break your heart, okay? Because F plans are no longer a very good value, frankly. Okay, so the F plan is being phased out, and because of that, when that all became finalized, insurance companies really began to sharpen their pencil and begin to get more competitive on what we call the G plans. And this is the one that most are recommended today if you take a supplemental plan, and we do recommend it. This is a plan that is supplemental and is going to cover all the gaps except one, which is what? And that is the B deductible. And what is the B deductible? You can see on your chart it's $185. So the only difference between the F and the G is that one item, the B deductible. So whatever the B deductible is set at by Medicare each year, you would pay that, again, once a year. So that's a couple doctor visits, maybe a specialist visit with some labs or something that would get you to $185. But the first $185 you're responsible for if you do the G plan. Now the reason we like it is because the difference between the F and the G right now in most markets, this varies around the country, but most right now, it's going to be somewhere between $30 to $40 savings a month. And so if let's say we're saving $40 a month, I saved $480 in the year, but I still had to spend $185, but I still netted about $300. So that's why it's really a better value. All right. And so, in fact, I'm not to brag on our company, but just to tell you, we're brokers. So we're part of a couple of different groups. We were just part of a large conference, Medicare conference in D.C. and New York. And there were 54,000 agents part of that group, and we were the fourth in the country out of 54,000 agents. We're proud of that. We worked hard and served people. And all of that with that particular conference was due to the selling of G plans by our firm. And so we like them. We think they're great value and also very, very good coverage. All right. Now, the next plan below that is an N plan. You'll hear some talk about the N plan. N plan is the one that covers all the gaps except four. Now we have four liabilities. The B deductible, $185, my opinion, no big deal. My problem with the N plan is this next statement. You're now responsible for excess charges. Now, not a lot of risk in that today, I understand, but that could easily change. And so you'll always pay excess for the rest of your life, $20 copays, $50 to the ER. And so the only difference here usually is about $10 a month or maybe $15. So you haven't saved that much with the N plan, and to me, you just took on some risk there that I would be uncomfortable with if it were me. Anyway, so those are your top plans today that are in most markets. And again, for those of you born after January 1st, 55, no F plans. Everyone else certainly can. Okay, now I said earlier in my workshop that Medicare is great coverage, great insurance, but it doesn't cover everything. And these are just a couple things we want to highlight to make sure you're clear. Medicare doesn't cover long-term custodial care. Custodial care are called activities of daily living. This is something that when someone needs help bathing, they have continence issues, maybe dressing, eating, toileting, transferring. They cannot do those things on their own. They can't be trusted to take their own medications. They have dementia or Alzheimer's. These are custodial needs. Notice Medicare doesn't pay for those long-term needs, like in a long-term care facility, a nursing home. They're not going to pay for that, right? And so if Medicare doesn't pay, then are these plans going to pay? And the answer is no, they're not. Remember, these plans follow Medicare. Okay, Medicare pays first, then they're going to follow based upon that letter that you bought, right? The coverage that you have. Okay, so long-term custodial care is paid by long-term care policies or some other kind of means, self-pay maybe. But these policies are not going to do it. Routine dental, okay? Original Medicare doesn't cover dental. Your extractions, fillings, and crowns, and root canals, and implants, those kinds of things. You have to have a separate plan for that. And so Medicare doesn't pay, they're not either. Cosmetic surgery, acupuncture, I've already talked about, hearing aids. These are the items that are not covered by Medicare, therefore not covered by your supplemental plan. People ask me all the time, well, will they pay then? No. If Medicare pays, they'll follow. If Medicare doesn't, they're not going to pay either, with this exception, and that's this. Medicare doesn't pay for foreign travel, but the supplemental plans will. So if Medicare doesn't pay, neither will your supplemental plan. The exception would be these plans that I'm mentioning here and a couple others offer foreign travel. This just happened to one of our clients last summer. My most extreme story. I had a lady in Ireland on vacation. She was 75 years old. She literally was off the plane 12 hours, had to go to the hospital. She was in for 4.5 weeks. The bill was $172,000. What did Medicare pay? Nothing. Medicare doesn't pay in Ireland. They only pay for claims that are in the U.S. or U.S. territories. So she had $172,000 balance. She had an F plan. It paid $50,000. That's what these plans will pay. $50,000 lifetime benefit, not per issue, but lifetime benefit of the policy, $50,000. And she happened to wisely bought $100,000 of travel health insurance. Pennies it cost her, and it paid $100,000. So out of that claim, she had to pay $22,000. Medicare paid nothing. All right. So this is one time they'll pay when Medicare didn't. Otherwise, they're following. Okay, now let's go to notes page 2, and let me just give you just a couple quick statements here about buying supplemental plans. When are you going to do this? Very, very critical. During the very first 6 months of your Medicare Part B, you'll be given a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to buy any Medigap policy sold in your state, regardless of your health condition, which means what? You could have pre-existing conditions. It doesn't matter. Why? Because during these 6 months, the health insurance company will ask you no questions. They cannot. Regardless of your health condition, your acceptance on that plan is guaranteed. So what we're saying is this is going to start on your B date. So let's say I'm starting Medicare this month, October. My card says 10/1/19 on my A and 10/1/19 on my B. So I have 6 months, October, November, December, January, February, March, which means April 1, 2020 on. If I ever want to get a different Medigap policy or change companies or plans or do any switching after April 1, I'm going to have to health qualify. Okay? During this period, no health questions asked, your acceptance is guaranteed. But after that, that changes. So when you have agents who are, untrained, just rookies, they probably don't mean to do ill, but a lot of them will say, don't worry about it. You can always change during the open enrollment period. And that's not true. You have 6 months, you can have what you want. After that, there's rules for switching plans. All right, next. One of the great features of a supplemental plan is this one. Supplemental plans can be kept for life. It can never be canceled by the insurance company unless you fail to pay the monthly premium. So it doesn't matter how old you become. It doesn't matter how many claims you have. You could leave your area and move anywhere in the country and take the plan with you. It's totally portable. They can never cancel a policy for any reason other than you miss a premium. Most people today pay through a bank draft. And here's my heads up on this. If you pay through a bank draft, very wonderful system, but if you close out that bank account, you move away, or maybe they go into draft and it's insufficient, the money's not there. As soon as they go into draft, the money's not there, they'll put you on 30 days of grace. And if you have not brought that payment current, that premium current, they will cancel that policy after those 30 days, and they'll send you a letter, Dear John, Dear Jane, we just canceled your policy, fill out this questionnaire, we'll see if you can get it back. Now you have to medically qualify to get that policy back. So don't let those policies lapse. They're theirs for life as long as you pay the premium. Now, I've spent a good deal of time now talking about original Medicare and supplemental plans. Now we're back on the grid, and now I'm going to teach you about the new system called Advantage plans. These started in 2003 under the second George Bush administration. These are called replacement plans. Okay, so what I want you to do in your mind, just to help me to teach today, is this. I'm going to say over here represents original Medicare A and B, with the supplemental plan, we'll just call it the G for sake of illustration, to fill in the gaps, everything but the first 185, right? Over here is going to represent, we're going to say this side is the Advantage plans. Started in 2003. These are officially called replacement plans. They took all these benefits and they replaced all of it, and now you have a private health insurance company that has replaced Medicare for you. So I'm going to compare the two, their differences. And the reason I'm doing this is because when you go on Medicare, whenever it is, these are your two choices. You're either going to stay in this system or you're going to stay over here in this system, and there are differences, and you need to be comfortable with that decision, knowing the differences. So number one difference over here on the Advantage plans is that we have networks, HMOs and PPOs. If we stay in original Medicare, we don't have a network. Medicare is the network. Any provider that takes Medicare, we can go there. Over here, now we have HMOs and PPOs. Now, in most markets, about 2/3 of the plans that are available in a market, and markets vary from having 20 plans to 40 plans in that market, but about 2/3 of all the plans in any market is going to be an HMO plan, Health Maintenance Organization. Okay, we use this box that's smaller in size because there will be less choices, less docs, less hospitals within the HMO plan. The PPO is going to represent about a third of the market, so you'll have plenty of plans, but not as many as in HMOs, but it's these PPO boxes larger. Why? More choices, more doctors, more hospitals that are going to take the PPO. Why? PPO pays better than HMO to the providers. So some providers say, I'll take the PPO, but I don't like the reimbursement amount on the HMOs. They just don't take it. Frankly, there are some docs that take neither of these. All right, but every Advantage plan is going to have some type of network. Another difference would be the HMO. We have a closed box. Why is that? Because you cannot go out of the network. The only exception would be if you have urgent care or emergency room. You can go out of network. But otherwise, we have to stay in our network. So if you want to go to a certain oncologist or you want to go to MD Anderson or someplace for cancer treatment, you cannot go out of the network. You just can't. You've got to stay in the network. If you go out of the network, they will not help you at all financially. Another thing with the HMOs, many of them require that you see your primary care doctor before you can see a specialist. You have to have a referral for that. Some people are very annoyed by that. You got to be aware of it. PPOs never put that requirement. They say go anywhere you want in the network. Specialist, primary care, doesn't matter. No referrals. Now, PPO also will let you go out of the network. That's why we have the dashed line for you to say we have an out-of-network benefit. Now, when we go out, it's going to cost a little more. We go to MD Anderson, we can do that. Probably will cost us maybe $7,000 out of our pocket, but the bill could be $200,000, and they will pay everything but our out-of-pocket network max. All right, so we have that benefit. So those are the networks. Those are differences. Secondly, Advantage plans have very low or no monthly premiums in almost every market. About half of all the plans that are available are going to have a zero premium, meaning you don't have to pay that Advantage company any premium to have the plan. Very low or no premiums. Why is that? Well, because instead of paying a premium, what we're doing is we're paying copays. So copay for everything that we do, and I'll show you an example here in just a minute. But copay until we hit our max out of pocket that's established by the plan. And again, this is just an average here around the country, somewhere between $34,000 to $10,000. $34,000 would be a typical HMO plan. PPOs are going to land around maybe the $5,000 max. $10,000 would be if you go out of network. But that's the range, so copay until we hit the max out of pocket established for the year, and then it resets every year. All right. So here's a quick example, if you want to jot some of these down, of some of the copays that you would experience on an Advantage plan. Doctor visits 5 to 25, actually some markets is 0 to see your primary care doctor, which is nice. Specialist visit 40 to 50. There's some markets that are $25, $30, but this is just, again, a national average. All preventive care is 0 to you. Medicare says that the Advantage company must match that benefit that they offer under Medicare. Urgent care ER, 40 to 90. There's some plans around the country that are $120 copay to the ER. Still a bargain, but very reasonable. And this is the one place where you do not have a network. You can go anywhere you want in the world if it's urgent care or emergency room. And that just makes common sense. If you're having a heart attack, they don't want you to worry about, can I go to this hospital? Am I in network? What do I do? No, go get care, and you're treated as though you're right in the network, urgent care or emergency. All right? Tests, labs, x-rays, 0 to 50. MRIs, your PET scans, your CAT scans. Every time you have one of those, up until the max out of pocket, you're going to pay for the scan. Outpatient surgery, cataract surgery, things like that. Maybe gallbladder removal, whatever, outpatient. You pay a flat copay, covers everything that's involved in that surgery. Hospital, we have no deductibles typically on Advantage plans, so they charge you a daily copay. Most of them are in the $300 range. So if I go to the hospital for 5 days, I haven't maxed out yet, that's going to cost me $1,500. If I go to the hospital 5 days later, maybe 2 months later, I'm in for another 5 days, again, $1,500 until I hit my max. Get an MRI, cost me $300, I pay that until I hit my max. So we pay as we go and pay as we go through copays until we hit our max. In this system, let's say I go to the hospital in 5 days, it cost me my B deductible $185. I go back 2 months later, I'm in for another 5 days, what's it cost me? Nothing. I need an MRI sometime after I met my deductible. What's it cost me? Nothing. Why? We have transferred away all that risk of those costs to that insurance company. We paid them a premium to take the risk. Over here, I have very low or no premiums, so I'm taking on a little bit more of the risk until I hit my max out of pocket. That's the difference. Alrighty, now some other differences are this system will include drug coverage. It's part of the package. It's embedded within the plan. Over here, this will be a separate plan. Most markets have about 25, 30 plans to choose from. Here, we take whatever's embedded in that system. Number two, over in this system, they will include a network of gyms and YMCA and community centers and curves and different places that you can go, and that is called Silver Sneakers, typically throughout the country. And that just means if you're enrolled in an Advantage plan, they'll give you the opportunity to be able to go to these facilities at no cost to you. So you can go and work out or participate in different programs and maybe play pickleball for free or something if you have Silver Sneakers. Over in this system, that is rare. Every now and then we'll see some carriers that provide that, but by and large, that is not in this system. It's over in the Advantage system. Okay. Next, this system will require pre-certifications, which means what? You go in and the doctor says, we need to have an MRI on your back, not sure what's going on. Before the MRI can be completed, they're going to have to, ordered I should say, they're going to have to call that Advantage company and get it pre-certified. It's got to be approved by someone sitting in their home office, and the doc will tell them why we need it, and you may get it, you may not get it. I've had people have to wait 3 weeks, 6 weeks before they got MRI approval. The company may say, no, go to therapy for a few weeks, call us back, see how you're doing. And so now they have a right to kind of look over the doctor's shoulder and play a part in these decisions. And that's why, frankly, some doctors don't like these, because they want to have pretty much the final say-so. But in this situation, the insurance company is going to have the final say-so in some services. That's called a pre-certification. Over here, we don't have that. If you need an MRI and the doc says you need it and you're in original Medicare with a supplemental plan, they don't call it a supplemental plan. The supplemental plan just follows Medicare. They make no coverage decision. Your doctor makes those decisions based upon Medicare rules, right? And so you want an MRI, probably done the next day or the first available appointment. Again, that's different. Next, you must review Advantage plans on an annual basis. Every year we go through this open enrollment period. We're in the midst of that right now, frankly. It lasts for 7 weeks, and this is for people to switch Advantage plans if they need to, or drug plans if they need to. Over here, that supplemental plan G, in our example, was written for life. Totally portable. Keep it for life, just pay the premium. If you move out of area, take it with you. Over here, you leave the area where you are and you just move a few counties away. You're going to probably be in a different service area. You're going to need to get a different plan. So you review those annually to make sure you're on the right plan. Lastly, you must medically qualify to switch. Now, folks, this really is the aspect of an Advantage plan that is not talked about at all, rarely. And usually it's because the companies don't train their agents to really understand this, but it really is important. So I'm going to clarify this because I've seen some people really get hurt by this, and I want you to understand this thing called the trial period. And so it says you must medically qualify to switch to a Medigap policy after a 12-month trial period expires. So first off, there's a couple things. Number one, I'm going to show you and teach you who gets a trial period and who doesn't. Okay, some do, some don't. But if we are given a trial period, here's what that means. It means that we have 12 months to test drive the Advantage plan, 12 months. So let's just say I'm going to start October 1, 19. From that day up until 9/30/2020, I have 12 months to test drive my Advantage plan. Anytime, any reason, if I have a trial period for 12 months, anytime, any reason, during that 12 months, I can get off of this plan, I can go right back into this system, and there will be no health questions asked whatsoever. I can come right over here, and the insurance companies have to pick me up. That's a trial period. But if I have a trial period and I stay on it more than 12 months, I'm on it 12 months and 1 day. If I ever want to leave this system and get back over here, once again, I'm going to have to medically qualify to do that. Now, let's say that I'm on an Advantage plan and I don't have a trial period. Day one on that Advantage plan, if I ever want to move back over here, I got to medically qualify to do that. Now, that doesn't mean you got to go take a physical. It just means that we're going to ask you about 25 health questions. We're going to check your medications and may get a statement from your doctor. And that's what we mean by medically qualify. You're not guaranteed to be accepted any longer. You have to go through underwriting. All right, so we'll make this real clear just with a very quick case study here. And again, this isn't in your notes. This is screen only. This is a husband and wife. They are both turning 65 this month. And here's what's happening. First off, John is going to retire and he is going to go on Medicare. And so he has decided with his Medicare to not get a supplemental plan. He's going to get this system over here, Advantage plan. And so that's what his card looks like. His wife is going to keep working until full retirement age. She turned 65 in October, but she turns 66 next year, so she's going to wait. But she goes ahead and enrolls in Part A. She's convinced if she doesn't do it now, she'll be penalized, and she's concerned about it. So that's what their cards look like this month. The question is, who has a trial period? Does John? And the answer is yes, he does. John gets a trial period. he's enrolled in A and B, which is required, and the trial period starts on his A date of Medicare. So he has 1 full year up until September 30th of next year to try his Advantage plan. Anytime, any reason he becomes unhappy or maybe his health changes and he's really concerned about max out of pocket, he can go right back over here, no health questions asked. But after 10/2/2020, he'll have to qualify to move. Now, how about his wife? Does she have a trial period? Now, what's going to happen, she enrolls into Medicare B. Next year, she retires. Now she has an A and B card. Will she be given a trial period? And the answer is no. No. Why? Because her trial period starts on the A date of Medicare. So her trial period is over, really, the first day she even starts. So that just simply means because she has no trial period, from day one, if she wants to leave this system to get over here, she is going to have to medically qualify to make that switch. And we just want to make sure that those of you who take an Advantage plan to understand there's a very important aspect to an Advantage plan. Okay, there are trial periods. And again, a lot of agents just aren't trained to know this. All right, now let's go to notes page 2. Let me give you some quick statements here about Advantage plans, and then we'll go to the drug coverage and wrap this up. So to be covered by a Medicare Advantage plan, notes page 2 now, you must be enrolled into a Medicare A and B. You've got to pay your B premium. You must live in the plan service area. That's a geographical area, usually several counties in all these areas. And you cannot have end-stage renal disease. This is permanent kidney failure. It means you're on dialysis or you are waiting for a transplant. That's the one health question that will keep you off of Advantage plans or keep you from switching Advantage plans. All right? Then a Medicare Advantage plan is not a Med Sup plan. You have been a part of our workshops and now you understand the difference, right? And you cannot have both at the same time. Both types of plans are not available to you when you take Medicare. You're either going to decide this system or that system, which is best for you. All right, they're both offered by private health insurance companies. All right. Now, this is, again, only on the screen, not in your notes, but I want you to see the summary here, and then I'm going to teach you about drug plans. So what we've learned thus far is that we have two options. Option number one, we can stay in original Medicare, A and B. We can get some type of a supplemental plan. I'm going to use G as for example. I think it's the best value in most markets. Now, what this means is this. When you go to the doctor, you go to the hospital, or any provider, you're pulling out your Medicare A and B card. You're giving that card to the provider as well as your supplemental card, that G card. And they're going to file the claim. And you never have to worry about a claim. They'll file the claim. They'll file with Medicare. They'll include the supplemental information. Medicare is going to pay first. They take the balance, send it directly to the supplemental company. And other than the first $185, that supplemental company is going to cover. As long as Medicare paid, they're going to pay. Now, financially, what this looks like for most people, A is free, B for most people this year, $135.50. Now, again, this varies around the country, all right? So, it does vary, but there are G plans right now. This would be a lady, non-tobacco, turning 65. Some markets right now, your G plans are going to be in the $110 a month range, upwards to maybe $150 a month. For that monthly premium, so $110 to $150. Men are normally paying about maybe $8 to $10 more than a lady in most markets. And then if we go this direction, we have to have a separate drug plan. Now, keep in mind, these pay for meds, but these only pay for meds that are inpatient and outpatient. So these are paying for meds that you're self-administering, your high blood pressure, cholesterol meds, things like that you take at home. And in most markets, we have 20 to 30 plans to choose from. And again, those are going to range anywhere from $13 upwards to maybe $80, $90 a month. And most of you would never need an $80 or $90 drug plan. Most of you get by with a $15, $20, $25 drug plan. But here we have three parts of insurance. We have three different cards, and we have three different premiums. So we have $135.50. Let's just call it $110 in some markets here for our supplemental plan. So now we're spending $245, and let's say we got a $30 drug plan. Now we're $275 a month. And we pretty much have transferred all the risk away medically to the insurance company, but the $185, and then of course we'll have to pay some things for our drugs as well. All right, so that's one option. Next option is called an Advantage plan. This is the 2003 plan that started under the George Bush administration called Advantage, and they will include a prescription drug plan. So in this system, we have network doctors and hospitals. We have a series of copays. We'll probably have some pre-certifications. We have silver sneakers. We can play pickleball for free. There's a few little perks they throw in here. The difference is when I go to the doctor, I pull out one card that I use for inpatient, outpatient. If I have to get a prescription filled, I got the same card for that. So I have one card, issued by the private health insurance company that takes care of inpatient, outpatient prescription drugs. So I go to the doctor or the hospital, I'm responsible for a copay. The balance of that then is sent not to Medicare, but rather to the private health insurance company, that Advantage company. They're going to get the bill, and now they're responsible for you less your copay. And so the question is, well, why would they do that? Well, here's why. Because when you enroll in an Advantage plan, what Medicare is going to do, instead of paying individual bills like they do in this system, they take roughly $1,000 a month. That kind of varies, but on average, about $1,000 a month out of the Medicare budget, and they send that to the private health insurance Advantage company. And the agreement is they're now responsible for you financially for all your health care needs, less your copay. Okay, so you pay your copay and they pay the balance. For some of you, they're going to make lots of money. For some of you, they're going to lose their shirt on you, right? But here's the rules. For every dollar that comes in, 85 cents must go to someone's care. 15% they can operate off. That's their profit margin. Now, they're not guaranteed to make a penny, but they have very smart people called actuaries who look at that law of large numbers in that group, and they pretty much know how much cancer they're going to deal with and hips and knees be replaced. And so they exist to take care of people, but they also exist to make that 15% profit margin. And I do not knock them for making a profit margin at all. My only problem is this. There are times when them making a profit interferes sometimes with the health care that you really do need and deserve at that particular time. The whole pre-certification issues, those things happen. Or maybe your doctor's frustrated with the system or whatever, and they pull out of the market. Now you can't get a doctor that you want there. So that's the problem with that. Okay, now I'm just going to give you one quick illustration because I want to make sure you're real clear on this. Had a lady that wrote me recently, and she's addressing her aunt. And so I'm about her aunt who is going to be 88 years here soon. And here's what she says to me. She says, Marvin, she has enjoyed near perfect health until her car accident this past April. Now she is needing more care, rehab nurses at home, etc. this month, and looking to need care for her back, shots, and she brought down prednisone. And she says, well, at her doctor appointment yesterday, we discovered that he needs to jump through hoops for her insurance to cover an MRI and a knee brace, etc. He suggested we talk to someone about evaluating her insurance needs with her progressing need for medical care. Well, she's obviously in this system, got to jump through some hoops. And now what happens, they want to switch from here over to here. Oh, what's the problem? Well, she's been on this several years, so she's going to have to medically qualify. She also tells me this email that she is having some issues with her liver. She's under care through a hospital liver care team. Well, I know she's not going to get to medically qualify to move from here to there. We had a lady last year who was 60. She was 65. She started an Advantage plan. Her plan was to go on at 70. 2 weeks before open enrollment last year, she went to her dermatologist, had a mole removed, ended up being melanoma, and now she has to be cancer-free, treatment-free. She's stuck there now for a couple more years. Okay, why she can't medically qualify to make the move. And so I share that with you, not to scare you, just to say that is the reality of these plans. And so you've got to be comfortable with those situations. All right, so that's the Advantage plan. Now, this will include a drug plan. It's embedded within. Now, I'll tell you, many of the Advantage plans have excellent drug coverage, some of them kind of mediocre. So when we look at an Advantage plan for you, we're not just going to look at networks and docs and all those kind of things and copays, but also to make sure your meds are covered well. Okay, so now I'm going to close our workshop out today with talking about drug plans. And everything I'm going to share with you about drug plans, folks, is included in both systems. So there's no difference here. All the rules I'm teaching you apply whether you have a separate drug plan or one that is embedded within the Advantage plan. Okay, so that's going to take us back to the grid. Go to the Medicare grid. And again, these are the same Advantage or supplemental plan coverage. Here we go. First off, every drug plan is going to have a network of pharmacies. Some pharmacies are called preferred and some are called standard. You can probably tell by looking at the name which one's going to give us the best price. The preferred will. So what happens is every plan is going to identify usually at most 2 or 3 pharmacies that are preferred. The preferred pharmacy may offer us a copay of $2. A standard pharmacy may have that same medication for $5. Preferred may be $35. Standard may be $70 on a brand name medication. So that's why we're saying this to you. If we can, we want you to be able to get your meds filled at a preferred pharmacy. Otherwise, standard is just a little higher. And by the way, don't always assume that mail order is cheaper with Medicare. Sometimes mail order pricing is standard, not preferred. Okay, so we have networks to deal with. Number 2, every prescription drug plan, whether it's embedded or it's separate, will give us a list of medications that are covered. This is called the formulary. All right. Now these formularies vary in size. And if you have a broader formulary, you're going to pay a higher premium for that. All right, so good formulary is going to have about 3,500 meds. A better formulary is going to have about 5,000 medications covered. A best is going to have about 7,000. Now listen, I'd say 65% of you, maybe 70% of you are fine right here. The better, maybe 20, 25%, maybe one out of 100 is going to need that best plan. These vary in price. These are going to be $15 to maybe $25, $30 to $50, and $50 and above, all right? And so that's what determines the price of a drug plan, is the size of the formulary. If you're on a couple generic meds, I guarantee you're fine here. If you're taking a few brand names, probably going to have to bump you up to here. Now, the good news is drug plans can be changed annually. Again, we're in that period of time right now. Every year, the government allows you to change your drug plan, and the insurance companies will make an offer to you saying, okay, here's the plan we're offering you next year. If you're unhappy with that plan that you're on, maybe because you're taking more meds or maybe because you're taking less meds, you can always switch during this 7-week period. There's no health questions asked. That drug plan is available to you as long as it is for sale in your zip code. That's the requirement. It's got to be in your zip code. Have anything you want. All right, so all plans have these aspects. Now I'm going to get into the very last part, and this is the most confusing part, and this has to do with how drug plans are structured. And the way to get your mind around it, to really understand this, is this. We're going to compare Medicare to your present plan, whether that's an individual plan you have or a group plan. All group plans, individual plans, have what we call a one-stage system. And what that means is that plan is going to take every medication that they're going to cover in their formulary, and they're going to give it a copay price, usually based upon a tier number. But let's just say the copay price is $10. Tier 1 medication costs me $10. And if I'm on a group plan or individual plan, that $10 copay is my fixed cost throughout the whole year. I could get it filled in January, I could get it filled in July, get it filled in December, makes no difference. It's one stage, one fixed copay for that plan year. Very, very simple, okay? Now Medicare has 4 stages. And what that means is that number one, we got to find out what stage are we in, because every stage is going to have a different out-of-pocket cost to me. In other words, a different copay. So I have 4 potentially different copays depending upon the stage that I'm in. So group plans, individual plans, 1 stage, Medicare 4, here are the 4. First stage in every plan, whoa, hang on just a second. I have no idea what happened. Okay, stage 1 is called the deductible stage. Now this is a deductible for this year, 2018, it's going to $435 next year. Now here's what this means. If you're taking a medication, you're going to have a certain copay in this stage. So I'm going to keep it real simple. Let's say that I take 4 meds. Take a sleep aid, high cholesterol, blood pressure med, maybe something else. And 2 of those meds are tier 1 and they have a 0 copay. Lots of tier 1s are 0 copay. And then I have 2 meds that are tier 2 that have a $2 copay, right? So I've got that. So these meds are 0, and those 2 meds cost me $4 when I go to the pharmacy to pick them up. So if I have 2 meds that cost me $2 and 2 that are 0, I have $4 a month copay. Will I ever reach my deductible? And the answer is no, you never will. Which means if I never reach my deductible through my small copays, I stay in that stage the whole year. The whole year, all right? We don't move at all. Now, let's give you a different example. I'm going to just talk about one medication. All of you have seen this advertised on TV, and this drug is called Eliquis. Eliquis is a patented blood thinner. Eliquis almost always retails for $500 a month. Retail, right? So let's say I'm on Eliquis. I'm on my first stage. If it costs $500, will I meet my deductible? Absolutely. So I go in January to pick up my Eliquis, and I pay $415 copay for that med. I just met my deductible. So I had to pay almost the full cost for it, right? And so now that I have met my deductible in January, now I'm going to move on to the next stage, which is called the initial coverage. And now what I have is just simply a different copay. And Eliquis in most plans is a tier 3 medication. All right, it's tier 3, which means when I go in February to pick up my medication, what's happening? My second tier, I'm going to pay $45 for that same medication, and I'm just going to pay a copay. All right, so I pay them a copay. But here's what's happening that's different on Medicare than it is with your group plans. Every time you get a prescription filled, Medicare is tracking the retail cost. They track the retail and track the retail, every prescription. They track it and track it and track it. And eventually, if that retail cost ever gets, this year, 2019, to $3,820. And please, folks, that's the key word, retail. You did not pay that. You paid your deductible and then you paid copays. But they tracked retail. And so if I'm on Eliquis that retails for $500 a month, how long does it take to get to $3,820? Oh, just a little shy of 8 months. So for 7 months, I paid just that little cheap copay. But now if I reach this around the 8th month, what happens? Now I'm going to move to stage 3. And now I have a different copay. But here's what I want you to see before I show you that. Watch. I have 2 ladies right now that are on cancer meds. And they cost $7,000 a month. I had a fellow last week. He had a medication. It's a trial med, $24,000 a month. But 2 ladies on $7,000. How long does it take if I'm on $7,000 a month med to get there? It takes 2.5 weeks. And then I move to stage 3. If I'm on 2 meds that cost me $2 a month, will I ever get there? Never. We stay up here. If you're an insulin-dependent diabetic, that means you're on insulin, maybe Novolog, Humalog, Lantus. It takes you about 4 months to get there on average. All right? So Eliquis would put us there in about 8. Cancer meds that are $7,000 a month puts us there in about 2.5 weeks. Most of you will never get there, but if we ever get to that retail threshold, that's when we move to the donut hole. And I share all that because everyone's heard of the donut hole, but they rarely know how people get there. And frankly, only 5% of all the people on Medicare ever even hit this number. 95% never see the donut hole. But now, in the donut hole, what's happening is now we have a different copay. Remember, every stage, different copay. So that Eliquis that retails for $500, I now have to pay 25% of the retail cost. So what's 25% of $500? $125. Okay, now that's my copay. So my first fill cost me $415, my next several cost me $45, and now I pay $125 while I'm in the donut hole, right? And now we have a whole different number, $5,100. This is everything that I spent out of my pocket, and the manufacturer has to discount brand name 70%. That's also credited here. So this is the official number that Medicare is publishing this year. They're saying that the average person that gets to the donut hole while they're here is going to spend about $1,350. They spent money before, and now here they're going to spend about $1,350. And if they ever get to that $1,350 with all the manufacturer discounts added, then they move to stage 4. This is called catastrophic. And now notice what happens. Now that medication costs me 5%. If I get to stage 4 and I happen to be on Eliquis that retails for $500, what's 5% of $500? $25. And that means that same medication, because I have different stages, costs me different amounts throughout the year. $415, $45 for several months, then $125, and then $25. Now listen, I didn't come up with this crazy system. It is annoying, okay, but I have to interpret it for you so you understand what you're getting into. And again, only 5% ever go to the donut hole, only 1% ever get to catastrophic. Most of you will stay in stage 1 and stay in stage 2 the whole year, but that's the way this system works. All right, now let's go back to notes page 2. Just a couple quick comments here and we'll wrap this up. Medicare prescription drug plans, notes page 2. Enrollment into a drug plan is totally optional. You're not required to take one. However, our advice as a firm is this. Choosing to go without a Part D plan is risky, very, very risky, and will result in lifetime late enrollment penalties. Listen, you may be healthy as can be right now. That can change in very short order. And so it is crazy to go without a drug plan, folks. I don't care if you don't even take a medication. Get a little $13 drug plan just in case that were to change. Listen, my home has never burned down, but I'm not canceling my homeowner's insurance. I'm just not going to do that. It's too risky to do that. Same thing about a drug plan. Get a drug plan. Just get an inexpensive one. At least you'll have some coverage and you avoid penalties. Letter B, prescription drug plans are purchased from private health insurance companies. Remember, standalone. 20 to 30 plans in most areas to choose from. Lots of choices. Or it's embedded, included within the Advantage system over here. Okay, it's just part of the package. So that's the way you buy them. And again, all the rules I taught you about these stages and everything apply to both systems. Okay? All right. Now, that takes us to notes page 3, that very last notes page there. And we will do the summary and then we'll call it a day. Okay, you have 2 choices when you go on Medicare. One is to stay in the original Medicare A and B system. Most people are going to get a supplemental plan because of the risk involved in A and B. They want to transfer that away. They'll pay a premium for that, and they'll get a standalone prescription drug plan. And if you decide that this is the way that you want to use your Medicare benefits, how many cards are you carrying in your wallet or in your purse? Well, I hope you said 3, because that's the right answer. We have a premium-based coverage. We pay premiums for each of these services, and we have 3 insurance cards that we'll use. Our A and B and supplemental card is going to take care of us for all of our in- and outpatient needs, and our drug card will be separate whenever we get our prescriptions, either retail or at a mail order service, or both, whatever you want to do there. But that system there is available to you. Some of you are going to choose that. Others of you, you're going to say, no, I like the Advantage system. I like the features of that. My Doxa network, I like to be able to play pickleball for free and all those kind of things. And so what you have here is an Advantage plan that's embedded a drug plan, included part of the package. So now, how many cards or card are you carrying in your wallet or in your purse? I hope you said 1, because that's right. We have 1 card, covers everything. It's a copay-based plan instead of a premium-based plan. We just kind of took on a little bit more of the risk because we have low premium, and now we're just going to pay copays for whatever services that we need. And again, both systems are fine, good insurance, they're different, and that's what I've tried to teach you today, the difference between those two, because ultimately that's what you're going to decide. Now, the insurance industry understands the complications surrounding Medicare. They know it's confusing. So what the insurance industry does is they say, we're going to give you some opportunities for assistance, okay, to enroll in plans and kind of figure all this out. And there's basically just 2 choices, folks. You can get what we call a company captive agent to assist you. And what I mean by that is this is an agent that is captive to one company. Just a quick illustration, if we'll compare this to automobile insurance, a State Farm agent. What kind of products do they sell? All the products that State Farm has to offer. A State Farm agent doesn't make available to you, farmers policies or Geico, right? State Farm sells State Farm products. Geico sells Geico products. And that's the way it also is in the health business. Every health insurance company has captive agents, and they sell those particular products. All right. Now, one of the issues that I struggle with this option for you as a captive, these company captive agents, is you're only going to look at a portion of the market. In most markets right now, we have 30 drug plans. We probably have 30 to 40 Advantage plans, probably 15 to 20 supplemental plans. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of options available to you. And so when you're dealing with a captive agent, you're looking at maybe 20% of the market. Okay. Now, whether that's someone that you see face to face or you even use a call center, they could be a captive call center, meaning they only represent 1 or maybe 2 companies at most. So you're not looking at a lot of your options with captive agents. But again, that's one possibility. The other possibility is, like us and others like us, we have chosen not to be captive. We don't want to be captive. Why? Because we want our clients to have all the options. We want to look at all the products. We know that one size does not fit all. Everyone's different. And so an independent broker, independent agent, has everything available to them in a given market. That's the way it works. Now, here's what I want you to see. No one here works for free. Everyone's going to get a commission. You cannot avoid that. But the good news is you cannot and will not pay that. Why? Because it is illegal for agents, captive or independent, to charge for their services. The insurance companies have to pay us. You cannot pay us. We cannot charge you. It's illegal to do that. And so the price to you is all the same. You don't spend more money with A or B, and you don't save any money with A or B. Price is all the same. Someone's going to get paid a commission. The insurance company is going to pay it. You don't have to. All right, so that's the way it works. Now, what I would encourage you to do when we help someone with planning, this is the way we do it. And we would be privileged to help you with this, but whatever you do in your planning, make sure it looks like this. Number 1, you want to have a smart Medicare plan. What's that look like? Number 1, it's specific for you. Folks, I can't tell you how many people have told me, well, I'm just going to do what my brother-in-law did, or I'm going to do what my neighbor did, or I'm going to do, what my cousin did. Well, listen, you're not your neighbor, you're not your brother-in-law, you're not your cousin, you're not your friend. Okay, you're you, and you want to plan specifically for you. You can't copy them because you take different meds and different situations, different healthcare concerns, different history. And so do a plan that's specific for you. Secondly, do a plan that medically fits you, depending upon your situation. I told you earlier, you have 6 months to get any Advantage plan you want. If you have some serious pre-existing health conditions, you better take it during those 6 months because you may never get one of those the rest of your life. If you want to try an Advantage plan, you better make sure it medically fits you because if something's going on within that first 12 months, you may want to return to original Medicare. But it has to medically fit you. So we take all that into consideration. making sure it's right for you. Number 3, it needs to be affordable. We shop prices. We understand you're going on Medicare, probably going on a fixed income. We want to stretch those dollars. So we're going to look at several companies to make sure you're getting the very, very best value for your dollar. And then fourthly, we're looking for reliable carriers. Not a carrier that's just lowballing to capture business, knowing the prices are going to go up. We're looking at a company that's proven to be rate stable, reliable, that doesn't cause us trouble when it comes to claims and all those types of things. And then fifthly, it needs to be timely. I've taught you, hey, Medicare has penalties. You want to be sure you do everything on time. It's a timely plan in every aspect of it. That is a smart Medicare plan. Now, here's the way we do smart Medicare planning. Number 1, if you would decide down the road or tomorrow or whenever you would like to have our services, we would love to do that. But you have to reach out to us. I told you this is a Medicare educational event. One of the rules is this: I cannot call you, and I'm not going to. Love to do that, but I cannot. All right, you have to reach out to us. You initiate that phone call, then we have the right then to call you back and actually talk to you about this. But you have to initiate that call. So if you'd like to do that, we'd be thrilled to hear from you. You have to reach out to us. Number 2, if you do reach out to us, we will do all the research that's necessary in your market. Everything. We'll look at all of it. We have staff. This is what they do all day long, honestly. Look at drugs and medications and doctors and hospitals and all the network issues. And we look at everything, do all the research. And what I want you to see is someone has to do this if you're going to be on the right plan. Okay, you just can't kind of guess at this. You'll make a mistake possibly. So we'll do all the research. Either you figure it out and read all the junk mail you're getting and ask all questions of people that will give you their opinion that may or not be right or wrong, or you can try to go through websites and try to figure all this out on your own and get probably more confused, or have our team do it. We're happy to do it for you. Number 3, then we'll have a review with you. This is a consultation, and we'll share everything that's available in your market. We'll compare prices and plans, answer your questions, and very, very thorough consultation with you. We'll do that, and there's no cost for that. And number 4, once you've decided that you're ready for Medicare and you're ready to start, we'll take care of all the red tape. I mean, from A to Z. If you don't have an SSA.gov account, folks, we'll help you with that. We'll help you get enrolled in a Medicare. If you're going to come in later after 65 and require SEP paperwork, we'll help you with that. If you want to start Social Security at 65, or you want us to help you with that later, we're a retirement advisor. We don't charge our clients anything to help them to do the Social Security application. We'll do that. We also do the IRMA appeals if you're high income and things change. You need to change that. But the point is, all the red tape, the paperwork involved with that, we will walk you through that whole process, making sure it's done and done on time. And then number 5, now you have a relationship with not a call center where you're calling in and every other time you get a different agent. No, you will have an agent assigned to you, and you'll have that relationship with our company for life. And so that's the way that we do business. It'd be our privilege to help you. And then people always ask me when I describe our services, they say, well, that sounds expensive. No, it's totally free to you. Remember, can't charge anything for this. The insurance company have to pay us as we write insurance plans. So it's totally free to you, and it would truly be our privilege to work with you. Now, there's a couple ways things now you can do if you're ready to get started. You go to this first website, getmedicarehelp.com, and that will start the process of us gathering information that we need to get from you, and then an agent will contact you. And then so that's those of you that are really ready to go. Others of you, you're not sure yet. So we have this website called Talk to Marvin. That's me. And you can go on my schedule and you can set up a phone time. And these are typically 10 minutes, maybe 15, but whatever you need. If you have any question that I have not addressed today that really needs to be answered, I'll tell anything you want to talk about, Social Security, Medicare, if you're going to stay on your work plan or you're not sure about all that, just go on my calendar, pick a time. I will personally call you back, and I'll answer those questions and give you some advice. But it'd be our privilege to help you. I do want to thank you for attending today's workshop. I hope you know more now than you did when we got started today. Thanks so much. We hope to hear from you.